allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you all for ending this beautiful day at a town board meeting. Virginia is excused due to illness. I would like to add some things to the agenda under new business, if you're so inclined. The subjects would be a contract with Patrick Head to snowplow the park and ride, hiring Zachary Snyder as a cleaner, Henry Hanstein's proposed resolution, and there's one other thing that is completely skipping my mind. I emailed them to you. Anybody read the email? No. That's much.
I read the email with the agenda.
No, it didn't come with the agenda. Well, if it comes to me, otherwise I guess it'll wait. Is there, would someone, well, I so move these additions to the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The fourth one was discussion of Lake Farm Advisory. Yes.
Thank you. You read the email.
Well, I'm reading it now. Well, I read it before, but
Yeah.
it was,
I have a question about that.
So I would like to add that to my motion. Would you also second that addition?
second.
Okay. Now discussion.
When you said the Wind Farm Advisory Board, were you talking about the law that they wrote?
I believe that was their recommendation.
Yes.
That was their written recommendation.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there another part to their
No, that was
sum and
primarily,
substance?
that was primarily it.
Okay.
But we can discuss, I mean, there's also the fact that the advisory committee was just a standing committee for 2016 and not beyond, so if the town board had envisioned something beyond that, then we can discuss as well too.
Well, the email said recommendations, right?
Yes.
But that means the law that you wrote.
A discussion of Wind Farm Advisory Committee report, which is recommendations for updates to the law.
Which is this updated law, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That was passed out at the last board meeting, was it not?
Yeah, and it's online too.
Mine
The
was-
law was passed out last month?
Mine was
It,
different than that.
32-page law?
it wasn't, not a physical form,
No, right,
No.
yeah, okay.
but it's on the website.
Right.
Any other discussion? Call the vote.
Councilperson Carpenter,
Aye.
Councilperson Handstein,
Aye.
Councilperson Miles,
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder.
Aye. We'll start with privilege of the floor. We'll start with Alice Lynch.
Okay, I am reading this for Beth McGee, who is unable to be here tonight. As I'm unable to attend this board meeting and the road use agreement is listed as an action item on the agenda, I would like to share the following. I appreciate the work done on this agreement as it was considered a task to complete during our moratorium on gas drilling activity of 2012, along with the aquifer study, which will be complete in the coming year, and the comprehensive plan, which I hope is complete and in place in the coming year. My concerns with the proposed road use agreement include language pertaining to road restoration and financial guarantees for completing the work. Residents of the area have accommodated Black Oak Wind Farm for several years as it has tried to organize its project by tolerating a road of poor quality that the county has put off restoring in anticipation of construction by Black Oak. Language in this agreement indicates that much pre-construction assessment will be made regarding road condition and that post-construction repair would return roads to pre-construction condition as assessed by the town of Enfield. In my view, road conditions should be returned to standard road conditions for each class of road used. I'm concerned that this language is not specific enough, since we've learned throughout this process with Black Oak Wind Farm that language is very important and specifics are a must in order for full accountability. I'm sure that Black Oak Wind Farm intends to return these roads to standard condition for each class rather than the poor condition they are in currently, which could be considered pre-construction condition. However, especially if Black Oak Wind Farm were to sell to a much larger entity, specific language about our expectations for restoration can protect the town of Enfield and its residents from any confusion on this issue. I also hope that any bond, letter of credit, or cash escrow deposit required to guarantee the money is available to do this work upon completion and will be required before any construction permits are issued, and that this language will be included in this agreement. Thank you, Beth McGee.
Will you please make a copy and put it in my box, Alice?
Sure.
Jude Lemke.
Jude Lemke, 215 Connecticut Hill Road. Sounds like you're going to at least discuss the amended wind law, so thank you. That's good. I do have a question as to why the board is considering the road use agreement at all, given that several things are still open. First of all, Black Oak still hasn't shown how it can build the original project. Where are the letters from Rich Teeter, and I think a letter from Donnie Gunning should be coming as well. With respect to Donnie Gunning, I sent you a letter and a report that I had commissioned showing that, in fact, that turbine number 2 is only 158 feet, not even 181 feet from Rob Tesori's property line, which means not only can you not build a 2.3 megawatt turbine, you can't build a 1.7 megawatt turbine on his property without his consent. You know, part of the problem is that Black Oak's never submitted a detailed site plan, and so we're having to reconstruct from, you know, what we can find. And they should have submitted a fairly detailed site plan by now so that we can actually see where things are located. I'm not sure why we're considering anything at all, because Black Oak is still in the hole. They're now negative $827 at the end of November on the escrow, and that excludes the $19,000 that's still in discussion, I think, regarding the FOIL amounts. And then finally, with the road use agreement, I do not understand where in any of these documents we address restoring the roads if one of these turbines falls or there's a fire or whatever, and they have to bring in heavy equipment in the interim during the operation of the project to restore the roads. Thank you.
Marcus Gingrich.
Marcus Gingrich, 101 Rumsey Hill Road. Yeah, I noted the agenda item with the road use agreement again, and I did send an email to the board. I'm not sure whether you all saw my most recent one. I just wanted to say that, you know, I don't think the board has been stalling. I know there was some comments made at a previous meeting about the board stalling, delaying. I think that until Black Oak actually provides the information, the detail, the clarity to the project that the board has asked for, then I don't see how that blame can fall on the board. That falls on Black Oak for not doing their homework, so to speak. So I just want to say, I think you guys have done a great job of really digging into this and looking at the issues. I just hope that you will continue to require them to give you the necessary information, the necessary detail to make informed decisions, to give it its proper due diligence and not just rush these plans through. I know that there's a couple more laid out. I don't know whether those are suddenly going to become part of the agenda tonight or whether they're new, but I hope that they are going to be given the proper attention as well. And compared to what was already previously given, it's a little hard on the spur of the moment to look at them and see, okay, have these actually changed from what was previously submitted? I don't know. So, thanks for your hard work and keep working on it. Thanks.
Teresa Goller.
738 Black Oak Road. Since I can't really talk, I just want to thank the board for all your guys' hard work and time, and just want to say thank you to everybody up there. That's it.
Anyone else wish to speak a privilege of the floor? We'll move on to our speakers this evening. John and Steve.
Pete.
Pete are here from Delaware River Solar regarding their plans to install, I believe, 2 wind farms?
No, one
One.
solar project.
One solar project in the town of Enfield.
Do a wind farm. No, thank you.
Not likely, you're gonna get investors.
We need some extra ones. Let's keep them missing.
You're supposed
yeah, I
to
can-
provide one for the public.
You can leave both. But if you recall, we were here last month and we were seeking the lead
Yes.
agency letter,
Yes.
which all went well. Our project is eligible for New York incentives. We just wanted to show up today to present the project more formally, where we're planning to go, and what we're trying to do. The project is on Podunk Road. We do have a contract executed with the landowner to lease the property. We have sent out letters to the surrounding neighbors just to inform them of what we're proposing to do and give them a chance to send us back emails or questions that we can answer for them before they could show up at the meeting. We have already gone through the interconnection study with NICEAG and have received information back from them that the site can fit 2 megawatts. The grid can handle the capacity, and we follow all their rules of interconnecting to their grid. So we've reached the stage where we're preparing to present to the planning board of the town. Hopefully next month, the environmental assessment forum, the stormwater prevention pollution plan, and our entire site plan. What we provided today, in this packet, and there's some layouts in there of the site where we're looking to do things. There's also a large 50-page memo explaining the project. It goes through a host of things, including many things that the town might ask regarding decommissioning, hazardous materials, and no hazardous materials in the equipment that we're using, vegetation management, site security. So I think most of the questions that may come up are in the project memo when you get a chance to look through it, but we're more than happy to answer questions today. So we're in the process right now of going through the permitting stage to get ready for submission to the planning board with surveys, environmental study, the endangered species, cultural artifacts, and everything that goes into performing the environmental assessment form. So we're looking to present the project next month to the planning board. So we'd like to, answer any questions that anybody might have, ahead of time, so that we can plan properly for presenting to the planning board if there's anything that, any questions regarding what we're trying to do. Again, it's on Podunk Road. It's going to be about 12 acres that we're leasing.
It's set back from the road, so it's not right on the roadway, it's set back on the property. It's, again, has natural barrier behind it. And it's gonna be about 12, 13 acres.
What do you use to control vegetation growth on the site?
Common question, we will not use herbicides. We are generally, going to hire a local, contractor to, mow them lawn or cut the weeds that grow. But we're not planning on using any pesticides.
Is that likely to be in your submittal that you?
Yes.
that's-
Yeah, and we'll look for a general maintenance crew
Okay.
locally.
Good, thanks.
I notice on the western side, you're gonna have to clear cut some growth, some vegetation.
There might, are you looking at the first page or the second page?
Kind of both.
You raise on the third page, I think.
The arrays on the third, yeah, that was the property outline. So that's the array, what it would look like. Set back from the road. So there might
Over
be a
here,
slight,
yeah, over here on the western side.
there might be some slight.
Yeah, we're still in the process of, going through the surveys and wetlands and everything. So that might change slightly before we submit it, but that's where we expect it to be situated.
And we're trying to do, typically we try to do everything we can not to have any clear, because it's the last thing we want to do.
What's the time frame for that?
For,
The time frame for what we're looking at is if we can get in front of the planning board and get our, work submitted, the length of time, however many meetings it takes to go through. But the goal would be, a second quarter, start construction if we possibly can get through the whole process. And it's, between 2 and 3 months to construct the project.
When it initially starts.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, from the first day you show up to start doing work,
2 to
it
3
should-
months.
Yeah.
So, late spring, summer?
yeah, and once it's done, we'll, and during construction, once it's done, we're gonna offer to the residents first for the community solar. So the power can be marketed all around the county, as well as the NICEAG zone that Enfield's in, but we're gonna particularly go to the residents first, so we'll have precedence.
Okay, well, about a few houses down from that.
I have just a trivial question.
Sure.
What's that?
We'll make sure you
The
get plenty of
circle on the
natural
map?
light reflected
What's
on your
that?
house.
That's all
The
right.
circle on the map isn't supposed to represent the location of the solar farm, is it?
Yeah, you know what, no.
They think upstate is all one,
That's not true.
except
The-
for Richard.
So this is the actual, obviously the actual property itself, right there
Yeah,
in Podunk.
so it's up here between the lakes, but I just wondered what that.
Yeah, I don't know why I
Yeah.
had the thought there, to be honest with
I
you.
think it's just a
Does have a
GPS
time.
mark from it, and it scales
Yeah, I
down
think it was-
slower. It scales down smaller until you get to like the third page that shows the overhead side.
Any plan to expand to the old hog farm across the street?
No.
No.
our plan
Are
right
you
now
aware
is
it's
to-
for sale?
It's for sale?
Are you aware?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
Assuming that your permits go through and the town doesn't hang you up, what is the likelihood of your proceeding and doing this project?
I think, if we can get through the whole permitting stage and the cost, the cost comes out right, because we do have to get through that, I think it's very high for it to go through. And I think there's some people aware, we have a couple of projects over in Enfield that we're, looking at also.
Thank.
And, it's beneficial to us, there's a couple in the same area,
Yeah,
crews and
sure.
everything else, so it's a very good likelihood, that it's going to get done.
If we get through the permitting process, the time and money that we put in
Yeah.
to get to that point.
Makes sense.
Yeah, if we get to April and we're ready to go, it's going to go.
Yeah.
It won't be a year to do,
Yeah.
to turn.
Just
but
good
it
to know.
is dependent upon the costs of permit. A big consideration.
Yes, one of the largest costs that go into this is the NICEAG study, to tell us what it's going to cost it to connect to the grid, and we already have that, and it's within the range to make it economic. Now we're going through the permitting, and if we find that there's any endangered species, wetlands, cultural artifacts, that we have to, go through further permitting, That may cause a delay, may cause a cost, but we're not really expecting too much from our first approach. So we're in the right range for what we've done, looked at for projects, we're saying it's a feasible project. So unless something comes out, through the process with the planning board, that tacks on an enormous cost, I think we're pretty good.
And I hate to ask this question, but
No, please.
I know you mentioned before about talking to neighbors or contacting neighbors. Have you actually talked to people nearby, and have you had any negative feedback from anybody nearby about putting the project in?
Not yet, and initially what we do is, so the letters, if the residents haven't, if the neighbors haven't received them yet, they should have already, but
Right.
they haven't, it should be today, tomorrow. But typically, we try to send them out a month or two before we're actually gonna present the project, so, but we haven't received any feedback yet, negative ones.
And typically, when you're doing a project like this with neighbors, what kind of feedback do you get from them?
Depending upon where we are, it's a mixed bag. So, and to be completely transparent, it could be, if it's a relatively flat rural area where there's not too many neighbors, it can go by without a hitch. If it's in a very green area where people are, highly promoting green energy, it could go off without a hitch. If you have an area that could be up on a slope and it can obstruct people's views, you might have some neighbors who don't want it because of the views.
Yeah, the
All
largest
depends.
issues, the
Yeah.
issues that come up the most often are your view.
Right.
And we will provide, when we submit, line of sight studies of, different parts of
Right.
the road of what you'll see, so the visual and how we're gonna vegetate to block the view.
Right.
Usually we're asked quite a bit about hazardous materials and is it dangerous, water running off, and, we take
Right.
care of that in the memo, and there's no hazardous materials. And the last one is the water runoff. Is there going to be some water runoff? Because there's a little bit of a misconception that it's acres of panels and there's a big flood, coming off at the end,
Mhm.
but there's space between all the panels. And the rain really falls no more than, a foot from where it would normally fall before it runs off the panel.
You have to do a SWIP or not?
Yes,
Yeah.
we usually will do that.
And do you have issues with people typically about property values at all?
We do, that does come up, actually, it does come up, it's a very hard question to answer because there's not many studies that we can refer to, about property values, but that does also come up, yes.
Right. And to be a little bit subjective about it, do you feel like your company is proactive about dealing with complaints, or are you reactive rather?
Again, to be transparent, I think we've learned our lesson, when we did the first couple.
Right.
We went to the board first,
Right.
and we tried to explain, and then residents didn't know what was going on.
Right.
But we do try and be right up front with, here it is if you get a chance to go through the memo, there's a lot of things in there, questions we've been asked that we've now incorporated.
Right.
But we do try and get back to anybody with the question,
Right.
pretty quickly.
I think mainly for us, just because of our particular history, just making sure you let the neighbors know is really
And
important.
one thing I want to stress to everybody too is our information, anybody can give us a call at any time. We plan on coming up to do, if you guys want us to do meetings and sit down and do some
Right.
sort of public hearing. But with that being said, I give my numbers on there, so anybody with any,
And generally what we do,
Questions,
once we start and we submit something to the board,
Right.
we will post that information on the website,
Yeah.
so that folks can get on and look at the site plan themselves, and look through what we've
Yeah.
submitted. And, we put it out there, and we do get hung up on things, because, somebody will go through it and say, you filled this out wrong, and you gotta go back and do it, or something like that.
Right.
But we do try and put it out there so that, anybody, you can, if somebody brings it up a meeting, you can just direct them, it's out on the website to see.
But I think because we're a rural community, and because there is no central area of town that's Enfield Center, that people go to and see things about, often people get their information from their own particular sources. So
Mhm.
if they didn't come to a meeting, or if they didn't read the minutes, or didn't go to the town website, they might well find that they're sitting at home one day and suddenly there's,
Right.
3 million solar
Something
panels
going on.
coming next door. And so I would just say, just for everybody's sake, just to make sure that you get the neighbors apprised, just so you make sure
Yeah.
you know that the neighbors
Unless we
are
missed an address, with the, we did send everything.
So,
out.
and I'll tell you what we typically do. So it will take the address that, landowner who signed up with us. And we will take everybody who is within the perimeter, immediate perimeter, anybody that might have a view, anybody that might be more or less butting up to the property. So that's the first priority right there, because if it's someone down the road, you usually don't get.
And you find a way to contact them?
Oh, I find their information, I find their addresses, I mean, I just go through the
Right.
local tax records, and then I'll send a priority letter to them.
Right, right.
And so we do priority to make sure, to let us
Yeah,
know that it was
sure.
there.
Yeah.
So if any folks live in that area, you should be receiving something.
There's not many people out in that area, and even going door to door quickly
Yeah.
can be a great benefit.
Yeah.
That's great, thanks.
I have an additional question. Have you contracted with the southern neighbors to see if you're gonna be able to keep the view, the southern view on the
And we
solar farm?
Contracted or
Or
contacted?
contacted, because I noticed that's,
Yeah, he would have been.
He would definitely be getting a letter.
okay.
So if it's a matter of, typically what we'll do is, we'll do the letters, and then a couple weeks after they go out, if I don't hear any response from anybody, in some cases, we can make phone calls if you recommend it, but otherwise, if they don't get back to me on the letter.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, like, given you have great southern exposure there.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that if the neighbor decides to put up a tree farm, I can't imagine that happening, but
Yeah,
that
I
could
understand.
have.
I think generally if we send out 20 letters, we'll get, a couple of responses back. Other people
Yeah.
just show up at the meeting and ask their questions, because they were then aware of it, it wasn't a surprise. But we do not get 100% response rate on letters that we get out where we get
Not
questions.
surprising.
Sure.
Yeah, the field's just south of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're cornfields now, maybe?
They've been used as grain fields.
Yeah.
They-
Can I see which one?
There's a granary on the site.
Yep.
Can't really tell from
Yeah.
that.
I just wonder what would happen if the owner of that land decided, we don't want to farm that anymore, we want it to go back to woods, and we want to plant trees there.
Well, the thing is, when you look at the array, typically what we do is we have to take into account, if we're near any trees or anything like that, we have to have the.
Yeah, there's really
There's
nothing we
setbacks,
could do
there's-
if the neighbor decided to grow, trees that
Yeah.
block the sunlight. I mean, other than going to them ahead of time and contracting with them, what would, an easement or,
I
rights
just
or
wonder if
whatever
that was something
we
you
wanna
looked at, or what.
But we do generally look at that, and we'll generally try and go more towards the middle of the property, so even if somebody puts something up,
Mhm.
because you're gonna have a buffer between the property line
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
But yes, we can't, you can't lawfully stop them from doing something
No.
like that.
And the property itself, if you're familiar with it, it was great in terms of how we can situate the array away from the road, sort of set back. You could potentially even drive by and not even, possibly realize that if you're looking for it.
Quite a lot.
It's large, yeah, it's far enough back, so even if, and if the back part of the property has a tree line already, so, to give you an idea if anything was planted, like Pete said, it's nothing we could really do about it. It's just-
I believe and I'm not quite sure, but I believe the granary, people who operate the granary own the property around it, and I believe it's organic now, so.
The mill,
Yeah, there's a mill.
that's what you're calling the granary?
There's a grain mill,
A mill?
yes. It went up about 3-4 years
Yeah.
ago. It's on the Aiken Road side.
Yeah. Well, I'm from the farm. It's
Oh.
not a granary.
Or whatever it is.
Well, they've
It's
got-
a mill.
They've got a
Mill.
couple silos or great storage bins.
Yes, they
I
do have
mis-
storage.
I miss mill the grain.
Yeah.
I believe you have, I talked to Pete.
Yes, sir.
Sent him you're Pete, right?
Yes.
You have the site plan application, site plan review law, right?
Yes. he said
So
that.
you understand, there is a requirement in there before we have a public hearing that you'll notify everyone, you have to mail them a notice of the public hearing out to all properties that is within 600 feet. That's part of the whole
Right.
process. So all the things that are being discussed will be reviewed very closely at the planning board level.
That's good.
That's a notification letter that has to go out later on for the.
Right, and basically, we
It's
will,
what
we
we've done.
will prepare a notice of public hearing that you're responsible to get to all the neighbors. I mean,
Yeah.
any other contact you want to have with the neighbors is fine. It's good to do your,
Yes, we've been
Understand.
through
We've
it.
done that before.
yeah, so. And there'll be a county review on this too, so.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Safe travels.
Thanks.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Oh, thanks. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to have anything pulled from the consent agenda? There are no budget amendments. I didn't have time.
There won't be 3 signatures on all of the town vouchers until Henry gets this back to me and puts his name on it. But we're getting close.
I have a correction to the minutes of the regular meeting of a budget amendment. I don't know if you want me to just tell you what it is, or if you need to pull
Well, you
it.
didn't email, so I guess you better tell us.
Okay. It's budget amendment number 24. It should be changed, just the number, the description was fine, from 3310.4 to 3010.4.
The line is incorrect in the minutes.
Yes,
The line number is incorrect in the minutes.
correct. Budget amendment 24.
Which meeting? Oh, would be the regular meeting.
Mhm.
So where are we? We don't want to do the consent agenda now? We want to do it later? Is that what?
I don't know what's legal
Happening?
about that. You
Happening?
tell me what's the legality if they haven't all been signed yet.
Are there
Probably
3
not
signatures
that.
on all of them?
There are 3 signatures on all of the highway department ones. There are 2 signatures on most of the town ones, and not a third.
We will move it down the agenda. Correspondence. I got a lot of letters from the insurance company on our next year's insurance. Payfully is forced to raise their price of its cable TV services. So effective the first of the year, basic cable will be raised to $65.45 a month. And depending on location, subscribers will also see their local station fees increase between 80 cents and $1.50 per month. That's about it. Oh, I suppose she wants a copy of that.
We can't use the lightning feeds
Sure we
for
could,
that. They're more expensive.
probably.
More expensive.
No. Mm-mm.
They just aren't ready yet.
Yeah, I've never approached them. However, they do not provide their internet. They do not provide television, and there is a sector of our town that wants television.
Of the town buildings that needs the television.
It's the highway department.
Yes. So, that's not to say you can't go to 2 providers. But someone could look into it.
Payfully offered a bundle for combined TV and internet. They offer
Yes.
like a $10 discount on the internet.
Well, that's what I was wondering what the $64 number was. Was that a combined or was that just internet?
I would
It
guess
says cable,
that's cable. Yeah.
Basic cable.
basic
Yeah,
cable.
internet's gonna be around $50, $60, depending on the rate. The bit rate.
So we just have the one television, and 3 internet services. All right?
Well, is that gonna affect us,
No.
or is that the public?
I didn't
The
hear
rate,
that.
the raise, that affects the public, or is it?
Oh, you think it doesn't apply to us? I don't know.
Well, we
They
have a
s-
special deal with them, a
Uh,
bundle deal.
that was a letter that came in the mail.
That's why I just wondered.
That's a letter that came in the mail. Addressed to the town of Enfield. Dave's not here. I don't see Dave McKenna. Highway Superintendent's report.
Well, started out with our first snowstorm. Got a truck stuck right off the bat. Teeter come down with his loader and got us out. That helped out a lot. No records were available that morning. And he brought his big loader down and got us out of that. That was 3 weeks ago or so, that first one. The loader broke for 2 weeks. That went down for a computer and wire harness, which it's all under warranty. Thank goodness, because it was like $5,000. And then we lost the transmission in another 10-wheeler last week. And got the 2 bridges inspected, got them inspected. Rumsey Hill Bridge is the worst. It just needs some patching. It's not, didn't get flagged for weight limit or nothing, got flagged for safety issues and doing some patchwork. And I gotta see, get some advice on how to do all that. Mostly was guardrail work on both bridges, Leonard Road and Rumsey Hill Road, that need to get done. And we have to get some parts and pieces to get that stuff. Got the lights fixed at the building. I talked to the electricians there for about the GFI breakers. And we can put GFI in the outlets, but not for the lights. So. And then I got Donahue and Harvick or whatever, they came and fixed the heat. HSC wouldn't come. They were too busy, so I called Donahue and they was right out there in the afternoon. They had to order a part, and about 3 days later they came and fixed the boiler, and we still haven't fixed the overhead radiant yet.
It's in process, though.
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
That's really good.
Haven't seen a bill or heard anything from them. They snuck in while we weren't there to fix the boiler. But they got it done. They were right there and got it done and stuff. They can't do the lights on a GFI because it's a 3-wire system, he said. But we could do the outlet, so you want to just put GFI breakers in, like we talked about.
Right, yeah. They can't put the GFCI breakers in the panel box for the lights?
Correct.
Okay.
Because it's a 3-wire system, because the switches on each end of the shop and stuff. But he said we'll probably have issues with the GFIs, like when we are using drills or chop saw and stuff. It'll probably break them.
Yeah, certainly can, yeah.
We'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
deal with that then.
So GFIs have been put in?
No, they haven't, but they said we can. We can do that. We just go buy the breakers and put them in. But I just wanted to check and make sure that's where we're
Yeah.
going. Go with that because of the lights and stuff. heaters. That's all I have.
So you lost a transmission and a 10-wheeler, so is that being fixed? It's not?
Yeah, it's at Caskey's.
It's at Caskey's.
We had to have it towed there. Got locked up in reverse and wouldn't come out.
Was that a plow truck?
Any idea why this is supposed to, but it says amount there?
I had a concerned citizen, tell me that there's inappropriate work being done on Hubble Drive. Now, my memory tells me that this is part of stormwater, or
No, it's not.
maybe that's the wrong term, but with soil and water?
No.
No. So could you explain?
Explain doing road
Hubble
work.
Drive, yeah,
We're doing road work.
you're doing road work.
Doing ditching and trying to make a cul-de-sac down on the end to turn around. We're not trying, we are. And who's the concerned citizen?
Wouldn't give her name.
Well, they're not too concerned then.
Well, I agree. So it's nothing to do with the talks we've had with the soil and water?
No, I actually brought that up. They have put out bids for that, and the bids have been approved, and they not sure when they're really gonna start, but it does include fixing the end of Hubble Drive.
And the town is involved partially in that.
Yes, we are, and that's part of the deal, why we're gonna be involved in that, for them to fix the end of Hubble Drive. Just shore the end up, the dead end part.
Was the concerned citizen specific about what she meant as inappropriate? I mean,
Many loads of gravel being put on private property.
No, actually, it's in the right of way. We're widening the road with the owner's permission. And we're not even taking all our right of way. We're taking 4 foot more than what's there, but we're about 2 foot more to get to our right of way. We actually, I don't know, it's like this, and it comes down like this at the end. So we're making it straight. We took out a bunch of trees with permission of the property owner to set the ditch back like it should be. And then we moved on down farther now at the end and got permission from the owner to, which, I mean, just to be neighborly, we got permission from the owners
but you don't need permission, it's in the right of way, correct?
to go in the right of way, and we had to take out some trees. There was a couple of dead ones. We took out a couple of trees, widened the road out. I think it was about 4 foot on that side, if not a little bit more. And then sloped his bank back like it was originally. And I mean, in the spring it'd be all seeded and stuff. And it's been a project. It's been a project we started, I don't know, towards the end of summer really. We've been going there on and off.
Thank you. What's the status of the CHIPS reimbursement? You don't know. Well, there's no money to pay the highway bills this month.
Well, I guess since you brought that up, I like to, since we want to go that route.
Thank you.
Well, I do my best to try to do the best job I can. I've been here for 8 years now doing this.
So
I went to a lot of schools. I've got a lot of education on this. And when somebody tells me that I'm doing something, especially the town attorney, saying I'm overspending and I'm spending too close to the danger line and the town board's just happy with me, I want to know who's unhappy with me for overspending.
So in the past 8 years we've been doing this, what has been the procedure? Because obviously the CHIPS money is reimbursement money.
Procedure is what Guy Crow says there. It comes from the general fund.
Is that what's happened in the past
Yes.
8 years? That's always, this is my first year, so
This
I
is
don't know.
even her third year, and now this year it's a problem.
Yeah, because I've been to school.
You ain't learning much, and you
Oh,
even
I
said
did.
that.
Oh, I did.
You've said that here yourself. You've been to
I
budget
did.
school. So what I want to look is a November supervisor's report. I mean, this is black and white. It says I have $155,021 in my account to spend yet. That's my budget.
Well,
No, I'm talking.
oh, okay.
Excuse me.
Sure.
And then in the savings, it says I have $17,000. What's wrong with that picture?
Which,
We got the CHIPS money
which
back.
set of,
It's not nothing to do with CHIPS money.
is this something we have, buddy, or not?
But doesn't the
Lot to
budget
do with
count?
November.
CHIPS money.
Supervisor report.
Yeah, I'll look and see.
But the budget counts as CHIPS money, doesn't it? So part of that is the CHIPS money,
That's
Yeah.
not my problem.
right?
No, it's the town board's problem.
Because you're supposed to cover it from general funds.
Well,
And Guy Crow says that in the letter.
says we can't.
There's the word. Says we can. Says you better too. You cost this town $600, that's not more, by not paying a suit coat for one thing, and $200 to talk to the lawyer about all this. It's ridiculous.
Soup coat had a $600 late fee?
Mike figured it up last month, says it's gonna be $400 for a month. If you're not gonna pay it now, that's gonna be $800.
And how much was the total bill?
28,000 something.
It's in the vouchers.
But the budget says, this is what I do. This is what I spend. This is my budget. That money is supposed to be there to spend. And if I'm not spending money, and I know this might sound bad, but if I'm not spending money, I'm not doing my job here. Because there's nothing the highway department does that doesn't cost money. Taking care of these roads.
There's a cash flow problem. And the cash flow
That's not my problem.
But it's the town board's problem. And in the future, it will be handled differently.
My question is though, it was stated in them papers from Guy Crow that the board is unhappy with me for overspending. I want to know who's unhappy with me for overspending. And then I want you to show me where I overspent. Because I had the report right here. I have no lines in the negative. The general fund has 6 lines in the negative. Almost $40,000 over budget in the general fund.
The budget is the budget. What we have here is a cash flow problem. That is
Now,
different.
what we have is somebody that doesn't know their job and not doing it. There's money missing. Some of you wear the shoe if you want, but I don't think Mike knows it and I don't think Henry knows it, but I have brought it to the board's attention. 2014, 2015, there's missing money. 3 times you sat there and you said you're going to find it. The bridge money and the leftover money. It's just gone. It's not in the savings. It's not in the budget. And then but it just very much upsets me when somebody's being told a bunch of junk, and it's being told by the town supervisor that's representing the town board.
There's a cash flow problem.
Buddy, where's the line from Guy Crow? Where is it on this letter?
As far as what?
That said that the town board is unhappy with you for overspending. I'm trying to find it, but I haven't found it. Okay, great, thanks.
Do we have enough money in the general fund
Yes.
to cover this?
Yes. We always,
So,
but, you know, I've just had a session with the state auditors, you know.
No,
It's not
that's
good
procurement. Procurement, that's all they did. Don't even go with that state auditor.
There were several conversations I had with the state auditor that you weren't party to.
Just like a lot of things. That's why it's all screwed up.
so how do other town highway superintendents do
They
this?
put in earlier for the reimbursement.
No, ma'am. That has nothing to do with it. You cannot put in earlier until you do the work.
Can I address that, buddy? This is
Yeah.
number 2. I want to read it out loud. The first paragraph says, "The town board did not authorize the payment of the suit code bill. Is there insufficient funds in the budget to pay that bill and cover ongoing operational expenses?" The second paragraph is, "The town board is not happy that the highway department budget is overspent and that it frequently or annually cuts too close to the danger line." And let me just address that sentence. As far as I'm concerned, and from what I remember about the meeting that we talked about the suit code bill, I am unhappy that the budget is overspent. I'm not unhappy with you that it's overspent. I'm unhappy that we have to spend so much money on highway department issues. It's not your fault that we spend so much money, though. It's the fact that machines break and snow falls and, you know, like we talked in that meeting the other day, highway budgets are really expensive, and right now, from what I understand, I don't think that there's enough money in there for us to do a really reliable replacement schedule for the machines that you need to buy. And I think we need to think seriously about next year's budget and how we're gonna put enough money in there to do a replacement schedule for machines. So yes, I'm unhappy that we're overspending the budget, not because you overspent it, but because we just don't have enough money in that budget, because that's the way it is right now. The second part of this letter, and that it frequently or annually cuts too close to the danger line. I don't know that we talked about that at last month's meeting in that sense, or the meeting we talked about the suit code bill. I don't recall talking about it. I personally, as somebody who does budgets, I don't know what else you could do really if you have bills that come in and you have a certain amount of money to pay them with, and you go down to $1 or you go down to 1 cent if you have to.
Well, I had
because-
22,000 less over last year, and I don't know where it went after that in the year.
So we should clarify the language on this, and it says the budget overspent, but from what I understand from what you're telling us, is the budget isn't overspent. It's
No,
it's
the
account-
budget is not
it's the
overspent.
account doesn't have enough money because we haven't got the reimbursement
It is a
yet.
cash
But you
flow
read up
problem.
above that, that is information he got from the town supervisor talking about me.
Well, it doesn't say the town supervisor said this, and that's gonna have to be something between.
Yeah, it does,
between
up at the
town super-
top.
Well, it says, "I did speak with the town supervisor about your
Exactly.
concerns."
And that's-
Then it says, "You will not agree with or like all the answers," but in a nutshell, so he didn't say the town supervisor said to me, so he may have interpreted something that Ann said, or he may know that Ann said that. But that's, I mean, in my understanding, if we're gonna look at the actual words, I couldn't say that Ann said those words. I don't know that she did or not, but this doesn't say that Ann said them.
You're dancing now.
That's the way that the legal works, is dancing.
Yeah.
That's the way you do, that's the way you do stuff like that.
Well, I do suggest that you look at another part of the monthly supervisor's report where you see what cash is in the highway fund and in the general fund.
Well, what I would suggest is that we figure out a way to incorporate Buddy and Ann and anybody else who's in this part of this budget process and figure the damn thing out ahead of time so we
It's
don't have
not
to
a
get in this
budget
position.
problem, it's a cash flow problem.
Then let's know ahead of time before we get stuck, if at all possible. And let's plan the
Well-
year ahead or 10 years ahead, so we can make a plan for this town, so we're not just trying to, last month, I went around looking at all my bank accounts and took money out of this one to pay that one so it wouldn't bounce, and took money out of this. it's a pain in the butt, but I don't have any extra money to do that. That's the way I gotta do. I don't know why we have to do that as a town. Maybe we do, but if we can get to the point where we don't, I think we'd be a lot better off. So we don't have to do this dance all the time and try and get around everything. I just, I'm not blaming anybody for it. I'm just saying, we've taken over this town and its government process and its budget process, and you've been here for whatever, 3 years. That's not a long time. I've been here for whatever, 2 or 3 years. That's not a long time either. But there's not a lot of money in your salary to give you time to spend weeks and months at a time figuring this whole thing. We don't have budgeted money to hire somebody to come in and figure out our long-term financial planning. Buddy doesn't have time to sit down and go over budget records all the time and figure out where the money's coming from if he's got to go out and clean the roads up. We're not doing this, we haven't done this equipment maintenance replacement plan yet either. We've been talking about it for 3 years. And I'm gonna blame myself. Yeah, but I don't really know how to do it, and I don't really have a lot of time either. So maybe if we all got along better together, maybe if we could sit down together and figure this out, we might do better. Maybe we just need some help. Maybe we need some outside help to say, okay, I'm gonna come in and look at all your problems, and I'm gonna give you some advice on how to do this. And maybe we have to budget another $20,000 in the next year's budget for this person to come do that, and for them then to sort us out and give us this 10-year plan that says, this is what you should do step by step every time when you're ready to do a budget. Buddy should do this part of it, supervisor should do that part of it, town board should look at these things. When I came in here, the first year I was in here voting on budgets, I was like, oh yeah, right, here's a budget. It didn't mean anything to me. I had no clue. And finally, after the next year, I started to look back, well, here's 3 years of budgets, and oh, well, now it's starting to make more sense. We spent this and this year and this and this year, and then I started to ask questions. I'm still not very knowledgeable about this, but I've been here for 5 years. Michael Miles is probably saying, I don't know what's going on here, and I don't blame you for feeling that way either.
But I see, correct me if I'm wrong, I see a couple major problems. One, we haven't built up an equipment reserve, so that there hasn't been money for that. So when we go and buy a truck, there's no money to buy a truck with, and then we have to increase our budget for that year to account for the truck.
We were on a pretty good roll until last year, and then this year, and then now we're going backwards.
But we don't have money just sitting there in a reserve, for these major equipment replacements. And then, this thing with the reimbursement and the cash flow, that's just internal town bickering. I see. I
feel the same way.
We solved this in the past 8 years that you've been here, and why is paying it out of the general fund, is that illegal, or is that?
It's not illegal, it's not good practice.
It's 100%.
And the board should be aware. The board should be aware.
It's not, it's not ideal, but we're not doing anything illegal by covering our expenses and covering our bills.
It is not illegal, it is poor practice. Now,
In
I
an ideal sense, but
I have never been told but what you can put in twice for reimbursement. Not the same things, but 2 different times. Is that true or untrue?
3 times.
A maximum of 3 times. So what is the reason you can't put in reimbursement in July?
What don't you get up here?
Answer the question, please.
You gotta do the work.
You've got to make the
before.
purchase. You've got to make the purchase.
And you have to pay for it.
That's
and
right.
you have to get the canceled check.
That's right.
Before you can put in for reimbursement.
And there is not one bill that we paid and the check came back in July.
Most everything we've done was towards the end of the summer because it took the first of the summer to prep.
And would you mind if, the only person I know who might have more knowledge about this than us would be Dan. Would you mind if we just asked him if he has any light to shed on this issue? Sorry to put you on the spot, Dan.
Fix it, Dan.
Is that okay to ask him?
No, basically, my understanding of CHIPS is that you have to have the work completed and paid before you get the reimbursement. The whole process, in my previous life, my experience has been that another town board always made sure that there was enough reserve money available to cover the running expenses with the expectation that CHIPS funding might be several months delayed after the work is completed. So it's becomes more of a reimbursement type thing. Now, if you've got a very, very tight budget, that's difficult to do. But normally you would make sure you had enough reserve in the highway budget and in the bank account for the highway work that you could pay for it and then get the reimbursement from CHIPS after the work is completed.
So I'm gonna step out on a limb here then and say, what you're telling me is that, I mean, you work for the town of Ithaca, right?
Yes.
Whose taxes are significantly higher.
Yeah, and there's a much more
than
involved
than the town of
process,
Enfield.
right.
What I'm hearing from you, that the answer to our problem is that we have to raise taxes and have more money in the bank. Is that true? Is that what you would say would be our solution? If we can't find a way to save more money?
You want me to say we have to raise taxes? I don't want to say that necessarily. Maybe that's what you have to do, but basically what you need to have enough fund balance to cover your expenses. The New York State Department, well, whatever, the budget, the Controller's
OCS.
office, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, control.
Allows you to keep enough reserve. They don't want you having 150% of your budget reserve, but they want to see 20 to 40% budget
Right.
reserve,
Right.
so that you don't have a cash flow problem.
Right.
So you have to build that up over a period of time, and you have to be a little bit careful about how you use fund balance to reduce tax increases.
Right.
Well, then I'm gonna take that phrase, you have to build that up over a period of time. The only way we have to build that up is through taxes. That's what I think.
Yeah,
Am I right?
unless you want to borrow money, which
Okay.
you don't want to do.
So if we're not wasting money, then we have to raise taxes.
Or-
That's my conclusion.
or find-
I have not
You
been
don't have to agree to
following
that.
our
That's fine.
budget and our, the
Yeah.
Enfield budget that closely.
Okay.
Wasn't there a reserve in the general budget?
There is some reserve in there.
No, oh, yes, we
Yeah.
have reserves, so
There's
does the
some
highway department have reserves.
Yeah.
They are not, it is against the law to touch them for anything but the prescribed purpose.
Highway has 20,000 and general fund has 249,000, I believe.
Yes, yes.
So there's the money right there. It's just being not workable and not wanting to cover
Well,
the
wait.
CHIPS money.
What about what Ann just said? What
What?
about her saying that it's not legal to take that money
It is legal.
It is legal.
From the general fund to the
from
highway.
the general
But
fund
not
reserve?
from reserve,
Not
from
highway.
reserve
not
line.
from reserve.
So it sounds like you.
From the general fund savings is where you're using reserves in a really,
Right, so that's a different-
There's a
Different
fund
reserve.
balance, and then there's certain funds that, if you have reserve funds that have been created for a specific purpose,
right,
which I do know in past governments have borrowed money from reserve accounts when there's an expectation they're getting a reimbursement. But
Reimbursement.
that's something I don't think the Controller's office really likes to see happen.
no.
So,
If-
So if you look at another part of the supervisor's report, the top piece of paper, you will see all the reserve accounts and the savings accounts in both accounts.
that's the A, general fund townwide?
And DA, highway fund.
Okay.
They both have a savings account, they both have a checking account. They also have reserve accounts. Reserve accounts, I'm not discussing. That is illegal to take money out of.
No problem, let's just take them out of the mix, fine. So let's talk about number 2, general fund savings.
That's the second in the line.
Right,
As long as you know that approving these bills tonight is going to require borrowing from the A fund.
right.
I would like to stop that practice by having the reimbursement, which our budget is always dependent on, is this reimbursement from CHIPS.
Right.
I would like to have reimbursement put in earlier in the year so that we don't run into this cash flow problem at the end of the year. It's nothing
Right.
about reserves.
Okay.
It's about a cash flow problem, and it is not about the budget.
So,
At this point, I totally agree with Buddy. He has not overspent his budget. It is a cash flow problem. In the DA account, there is not enough money to pay payroll and hardly any of these bills that you just signed. I just want you to know. And I asked Buddy when he thought the reimbursement's gonna come in.
so what are we doing about the fact that there's not enough money? What are we doing as a board about that?
Next year,
No, right now.
I will be monitoring the reimbursement much more closely.
What are we doing in December to cover these bills that need to be paid in
If
December?
you approve them, there will be a borrowing from the general fund
That's all you gotta
savings.
do. Do a resolution to borrow the money from the savings. That's what they've done in the past.
Well, I just got that, buddy.
No,
I
they've
know.
never passed a
They have.
resolution. They've never passed a resolution. It's been a bookkeeping deal,
No,
which
no.
is not illegal, I guess.
No.
I just think the board should know. And I really, really am going to hammer on an earlier submission
You
to
can
CHIPS.
hammer all you want, but you're gonna be hammering on rock. Because there's no
Okay.
solution to that.
Well,
Well,
I think there
here,
is.
let me say this. Buddy, you heard what Ann's needs are, right? You heard her.
And she's heard what
You don't-
my needs
You
are.
don't have to tell me that you agreed.
I'm not going
All
to.
I'm asking
either.
is if you'll tell me if you heard her.
No, I won't.
You didn't hear her.
Because I've done my job. I've done the 284. I got the money in the budget. Once it's in the budget, it's for me to spend. The cash flow problem is your guys' problem.
Let me say
That's what,
this
that's
then,
what
okay?
we're discussing. here.
If we don't work together. as a
So I
town
guess you
board-
better start working with me. Because
not-
I've been fighting you tooth and nail for the last 2 years.
But the reality
And
is.
her.
The reality is that the CHIPS money is under the supervision of the town board.
Exactly. Next month, when I bring the 284 form in, you can either sign it or you don't sign it.
That's right.
And then we can
Because-
sit on our duffs and do nothing
Because
while you're trying to decide whether you're
it's
gonna
a
sign it or
board-
not.
It's a board document, the 284.
You ain't telling me nothing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I just found this out
So-
this year.
Yeah, I
So,
know.
another question I have in all this, assuming that the board can pay this out of the general fund or wants to pay it out of the general fund, is there enough money in the general fund accounts to cover that expense for like, was it Sukkot? And was it Sukkot, Bill?
The outstanding.
Yeah, the outstanding one, and to cover the bills and also the town general bills, is there enough money to cover both of them if we pay it out of the general fund? Does that create a problem for the general fund now?
I doubt it.
So we have enough money to cover the town general fund expenses and the Sukkot bill and the other. It's just a matter of, it's not the ideal way, but it seems like the only way that we have to move forward.
If you look at the first page of that I gave you, Guy Crow says it's a general fund issue, CHIPS money is.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes.
Can we just make a resolution to pay it out of the general fund rather than keep incurring expenses?
We can. I would have to say something first, though. And that's a statement to you, buddy. To me, working with people
Don't
means-
give me your junk. I'm sick of your mouth.
You don't
All you
care?
do is a bunch of dancing.
You know.
Just
that's
like you're the
really-
one that wants me to take CHIPS money and buy equipment with it instead of putting it in the roads.
Well, that
I'm
is
really gonna do that.
board has input in
I think your highway department report is over.
Yeah, I think it is too.
it. Yeah. Thank you.
When you guys learn how to do our town, you better start working at it. Go to more classes.
Dave showed up. See, if you'd showed up on time, you wouldn't have had the show. That's your reward. Dave McKenna, County Legislator Report.
Okay, the most controversial thing, let's get it out of the way right away, is legislature voted a raise for incoming legislators next term. That raise amounts to $2,325 and basically puts the average hourly rate at $13.77, which is living wage level today. Now, probably won't be when it goes into effect.
Not January.
But today it is. So that's probably the most controversial thing. Just for information purposes, legislators over the last 7 years have received $375 in raises, period. That was near the beginning of that term, if I remember right. Also decided to go ahead with the shared services law enforcement study, and we're using CTR out of Rochester, who is the same company that's doing the new jail study. Unfortunately, there were 2 different groups working to set this up, and we didn't know that the other guys chose them, they didn't know that we chose them, so they ended up being both. They're a pretty darn good outfit though, and I'm pretty sure they can handle it. So I think it's gonna be all right. The bill for that's gonna be about $70K. 50 is from grants, 10 is from the contingent fund, and 10 is from the city of Ithaca. There's gonna be a public hearing at the beginning of the next legislature meeting having to do with changes to our second round of changes to the what do they call it? The charter, that's what it is. Sorry about that. These changes basically have to do with putting back the wording to the way it was as to the Mental Health Services Board having equal power with the Public Health Board. Because now they're both under the same administrator. So anyway, we wanted it the same as it was, and that's the way we decided to change it at the last meeting. We'll see where that goes. If anybody has any strong objections to that, please show up for the public hearing and voice your opinions. We also voted the award of bid for the Red Mill Bridge and West Mallory Road Bridge rehab. That's to Silver Line Construction at $2,393,145. We approved up to $10 million in revenue anticipation notes. According to Rick, the finance guy, we've never used them in the last 15 years. I can't even tell you how many years it's been since we used those revenue anticipation notes, but he doesn't expect to need them this year either, but he's got the authorization to go ahead and borrow the money if we don't have, so we don't have a cash flow problem.
Oh, that's comforting.
Also approved 3 stream quarter restoration projects and flood hazard mitigation projects. And they're part of a $25K annual budget. But actually one of them's here in Enfield. So that's my report. Anybody got any questions?
I do. You were mentioning the shared services direction that the county is going in terms of the sheriffs. Is the county working at all with the towns to develop any shared services? Or is that just left to
some
the
of the towns are right on this.
Yes. It's all done through TCOG.
Yeah.
And every town that wants to attend TCOG can attend, and
But
And what areas are you exploring in terms of budgeting?
they're looking at everything,
Oh,
nothing.
yeah.
Highway, town
no,
boards?
this
No,
one's
this
about
is, this is
the
only sheriff, this is only
enforcement,
law enforcement.
law enforcement.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. Does the county have anything to say or any connection with any of the towns in relation to the fact that the state would like us to develop our own shared services agreements with each other?
And I'll repeat. You
Yes.
repeat. He'll like it from you better.
It's all being done, any town that wants to get in on this project, and I think Dryden, probably out here, I can't remember who else.
Trumansburg, you
Trumansburg.
listen, yeah, Tiber, the village of Tiber.
There was one more, isn't there three? Groton.
Yeah, Groton has a police department.
Okay, so there's
Law
those
enforcement.
three plus the city of Ithaca plus the sheriff's
Sheriff's
department.
Department.
Okay, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at what it would take to combine some or all services of those groups. It's not necessarily 100%, all one countywide police force. That's not necessarily the case.
I'm not getting something, I guess, maybe I'm mishearing it, but I understand you're talking about police forces. What about highway departments? What about, what about state government or
No,
town
it's
government?
No.
it's not, this study has nothing to do with that.
What about the interest? I'm not talking about the study. What about the county's interest in helping towns do this? What about their
Highway's the
willingness?
last one they're gonna tackle.
What about their willingness to do that?
I honestly can't speak to that because I really don't know where we're gonna stand on that. I would assume, based on what the governor wants, to get as many shared services out there as we can, that we would entertain any of it, but I can't absolutely tell you that for a fact today.
But you're not working on anything else?
No,
And-
not at the moment.
And no one is going around talking to towns saying, let's get together and talk about this from the county level?
I believe Joe Moraine has
Yeah.
spoken to all the
We've done
towns.
courts
Yeah, the courts are being worked on.
and yeah, courts.
As far as I
Now
know,
it's law
all-
enforcement.
It's just all law enforcement stuff right now, and the
Right.
courts are a separate issue because they're state.
Hmm? What?
How do you feel personally about working toward that end, or working toward helping the towns combine services in other areas?
I think anything we can do to save each other money is a good thing. I really don't think there's anything wrong with
Right. Do you get paid enough to have time, for instance, if the town of Enfield were to make a resolution and said to you that we would like you to present that at the county level and see if you could get something passed that would start that process, is that something that would happen or not happen, or how does that go, how does that happen?
that. I believe you would have to go through a government operations committee
At the county level?
at the county level.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, good.
And that's where I would tell you to go first and speak to Dan Klein.
Right, because there are grants out there by the state for
Right, no,
towns.
that's what we're doing. I
Right.
mean, actually, $50,000 of this study is paid
Right.
for by one of those grants.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, the state has now a competition that gives you somewhere like $50 million for towns to submit proposals for how they're going to put themselves together with other towns. I assume they wouldn't give the town of Enfield and the town of Newfield $50 million to do that. It's more
Nice if
likely
they did.
very, very large towns that they would do that to.
I
But,
don't know how that would be broken down,
yeah,
but I mean, basically Tompkins County as a whole got $50,000 to do this study.
so when this money is doled out, it doesn't necessarily have to come in just one large grant. There might be other smaller grants, or they might take the
Absolutely, yeah.
50 million and put it into little smaller areas too.
I'm sure the state's got a lot of funds for purposes like that. I can't tell you what they are, but
Right.
there are people in the county
Right.
government that can help you with that.
So go to the county government committee and do.
Paula knows.
Yeah, Paula can tell you. I'm
Okay,
sure.
great, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
You wanna go back to the consent agenda now? Have we signed everything?
I think we did.
Okay.
I do have a question I would like to ask, not that I want to pull something out of the consent agenda, but I'd like to ask a question just for general knowledge to know whether I do want to pull something out of the consent agenda. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Like you're holding your breath here. So if I read, Alice does a great job on the minutes, and she's very good at being concise and putting things together and things. But I do notice oftentimes, especially in terms of myself, because I have a big mouth, that she doesn't put many of the things that I say in there. And actually, I would thank her for doing that, because I think I'm better off if they're not in there. But is it an issue? If lately I've been thinking about this whole thing with Black Oak and who's going to sue whom at this point. And at this point, the next year might be littered with lawsuits against the town of Enfield from who knows what parties. And I'm wondering how important it is to be as accurate as possible in getting everything into our minutes as we possibly could get in there. And I know it's all on tape, I think, right? So is it important really to do we feel like it's important to get every perhaps appropriate or relevant comment into the minutes? Or can we just not worry about that and figure if the time comes we can go back to the tape and find things that might mitigate whatever or something like that? And I'm finding it's very important because of the things that have happened in the last 2 weeks. And as I explore those things that have happened in the last 2 weeks more and more, I'm finding that legal issues are getting to be a big deal.
What things are you referring to in the last 2 weeks?
Well, there's definitely been some conflict of interest issues brought up, and the possibility of certain board members losing their vote or even losing the right to speak in the board meetings about certain issues. When I've talked to the lawyers about this, they said that this comes up often in boards, and he finds that it's surprising how often it actually comes up in boards that conflict of interest statements get made and often don't get brought out to the public. In fact, I just happened to spend some time yesterday reading through some of the emails on the town's websites and on other emails that come in, and I read things with a new awareness of how conflict of interest is defined by lawyers and by county ethics committees. And I find that not only one person's statement, but actually I could go back and read many different people's statements on this town board and see them as being defined under that conflict of interest category. And then I say, who's going to sue us for what when this all comes around, And how important is it to get all the information with all its mitigating remarks and factors into the town board's minutes? Because if somebody goes back and reads these town board's minutes and says, well, this guy said that, and actually there was a lot more to it than that. And obviously we know that things can be read out of context very differently than what they look like in context. You can say, I want to kill you with my love, and you can say that the guy said he wants to kill me, and so you could take that to a court of law and whatever, that's an obvious silly one, but it's made me think more and more about legality, and we are just kind of calmly sailing through our seas, and there may well be some pretty heavy storms ahead, and I'm wondering if we need to consider ahead of time what we're getting into. This presidential election obviously made us all kind of think, things happen differently than we expect them to happen, and we maybe should be more aware of that going in, is all. So
we can't have all the conversations, all the words of the conversations in the minutes, and we do have the tape back up, like you said.
Right.
Maybe that's all we need is an outline and then the tape.
And I'm fine with that. If I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's an issue, so, or it could be an issue, let's say.
Well,
if it's not, I'm happy to.
My comment would be that the minutes are sent to board members, and I have always felt it behooved me to read them carefully and ask for changes when I felt it was appropriate. It's a public record.
That's true.
Um,
Yeah. But then Alice obviously can't put in every word that everybody
No.
says, so.
No.
So she's
No.
doing the best she can to interpolate the meaning and the point of what's coming across. So, then it's a gray area. Then it's like, well, 2 or 3 people did respond to that person when they made that comment. Those people aren't mentioned in the minutes, and were their responses significant? Were they relevant? Or were they, in Alice's interpretation, were they just, that wasn't really needing to be said? And obviously Alice has to interpret within her own understanding of what's best. We all would have to do that if we had our job. And my understanding may be very different than hers or Michael's or yours or Henry's. You know, we all have our different ways of understanding what's important and what isn't important.
I guess if someone really wants to know what was said more specifically, they can go to the tapes.
Right.
I think it's,
Right.
I
How,
mean,
what's the retention?
Well, the legal retention, I think, is 3 months, but I've been keeping them longer, and I think as long as this issue is going on, they will be, they're not tapes, they're on our computer as digital.
Right,
voice,
the digital
so-
files, yeah.
And,
so there's no reason to purposely destroy them.
right,
especially
at
if
this
it's gonna be-
point in
at this
time,
point,
right, yeah. What's required in the minutes is only the motions and resolutions that are made that are voted on. Nothing else is required to be in minutes. And different clerks do differently. Some will do very brief and some will do longer minutes.
Right, that's good to know. That's
I
good.
think mine are
Yeah.
probably as long as anybody's,
Right, yeah.
but it's up to the clerk what they want to put in. And
Right.
but like as Ann said, if you feel something should be added, let me know and I can
Right.
determine, go
Right.
back and listen to the tape. or
Well, my
things.
concern is that in actuality, lawsuits may hinge on things that are in the minutes. And they may hinge on things that are minutes that are not motions and votes. They may hinge on other things that are in the minutes that aren't included in that, so.
That may, yeah.
So,
So.
it's an interesting concept, and it actually has a lot of ramifications that I didn't really realize before, so. So that being said, I'm ready to vote on the consent agenda.
Well, I have another, particular. Last month, we removed the suit coat audit,
Bill.
voucher from the audit. Did we not?
We did.
So, I do not believe it was put in this audit, was it?
Yes, it is.
It is in this audit.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. All right, because I didn't look at the highway. Is it last month's bill, or there's another bill this month in addition?
It was, I saw the suit coat.
It's identical to last month's.
In fact, I had my signature from last month.
Right, it just changed the voucher number.
Yeah, okay. Well, I just want to make it sure it's in,
Mhm.
because it was taken out last month, so in order to avoid the penalty. All right. I move that the consent agenda and be approved with audit claims number general fund.
336 to 370,
236.
336 to 370, in the amount of $23,367.39. Highway fund vouchers, 203 to 225, in the amount of $75,312.46.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? Called vote?
Councilperson Carpenter?
Aye.
Councilperson Handstein?
Aye.
Councilperson Miles?
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder?
Aye. Okay, Alan, code enforcement report.
For the month of November, I issued 8 permits. including one new home, which brings us to 64 for the year. A little bit behind last year. Last year we finished out with 79 permits. A little bit lower this year, I think, because there's less solar installations. Issued 7 certificates of completion and did a total of 14 inspections and progress checks. A couple other things, I want to let you know that the Williamson Law Book software was installed on Monday. It's up and running. There's a couple minor glitches with it, which they're trying to work out. But generally it works just fine. I've been using it. So. Another thing is my copier stopped working last month, I think. So I picked up a new copier at Staples. And I was just looking for board approval to dispose of the old one as excess property. It's probably about 12 or 14 years old.
What do we have to do that?
Just take it to either reuse or recycling.
What do we have to do to approve it?
I think we have to make a resolution for it
I
to be,
believe.
that it's declared excess property.
I would make a resolution that the
A motion.
building department's old copier is excess property and should be taken to its appropriate home.
And has little or no resale value or monetary worth, I would add.
Probably not that
No.
deep. No.
The IT guy would agree.
I would agree, yeah.
Well-
Weigh 60 or 70
You take it down to the dump.
Well,
and put
yeah.
it in the electronics.
Yeah. And you have to dispose of those things properly now.
You can take it to the dump, yeah, they have a.
Yeah,
place
they
for
have
it.
a section,
Yeah,
and they'll help you carry it.
there's an electronic section there.
Yeah, Michael's right, it's illegal to put it in the trash now, so.
Is that right?
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
Is there a second to Mike's motion?
Seconded.
All right, any discussion? Call that vote.
Councilperson Carpenter?
Aye.
Councilperson Handstein?
Aye.
Councilperson Miles?
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder?
Aye.
And the only other thing I'd like to bring to the board's attention again is the roof over the entryway here, which has been missing for several years. I would like to try to get that replaced. At one point, Justice Poole said there was money in her grant money to replace that, and she was talking about that, so if it's
Yeah,
okay,
there's
I'd like
the-
to bring that up to her again and see if we can't get that replaced out there.
You don't need a motion for that, do you? No.
Not at this point, probably
No.
if we get bids for it and see what it comes in at.
The one out here?
I forget how much she still has.
I think it's a good idea.
Around $7,000, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm tired of shoveling snow already, so.
Well, it's a safety issue too, and there's a lot of reasons to do it.
Yeah, it is. She was talking about a little bit bigger one, the one that was there, so.
Okay.
I'll get
Can you bring that to the board when you get all the information and?
Yeah, yeah, I'll bring that with her and make sure she still wants to pursue that.
Okay.
Is willing to spend her funds on that.
Who would build it?
Have to hire a local contractor.
Depends on whether it's over $3,000 or not.
That sounds like it would be.
Probably not, depending on the size of the roof.
Well, let's find somebody who'll do it for $2,999.
Yeah, then we'll add walls later, extend it later.
For another $2,999.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's supposed to work. Oh, that's all I have. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisors report, I attended the TCAG meeting, finalized the 2017 budget, added the TCAD, I attended the TCAD Board of Directors meeting. I met with Patrick Head regarding park and ride plowing. I met with Zachary Snyder regarding cleaning the community building. I researched, or rather Sue researched at my request, the town's opt-out of the solar farm tax exemption, which I had to research again because I couldn't remember from last month. And I met with the Delaware River Solar the proposed solar farm in Enfield. Now we'll go on to committee reports. The Wind Farm Advisory Committee.
That would be me. We have not met since the last meeting. We pretty much concluded our immediate work by presenting the town with the revised recommendations for wind law. The committee was formed earlier this year, maybe it was late last year, as a standing committee for 2016 only. So the question is, does the town board foresee a need to keep the committee for 2017?
What would be, as chair, what would be your recommendation?
There's always more work to do on the law. The law we created made some targeted changes to the existing law, but it's still, I don't think it would meet the level of what, we actually were working on more extensive changes, but we scaled them back to be more manageable for the town.
How do you mean that, more manageable for the town?
There were a lot of changes that we were working on, and we decided to focus on some very specific ones to make them more manageable, more easier to describe, more palatable for the town to digest, and that fixed the key issues that came up this year. Like, there were some setbacks that we changed, there were some notification areas that we recommended changing. There was a height restriction. What were some of the other ones that we?
The notice provision.
Yeah, notice in the area that we were working on.
Sound.
Oh, yes, the sound, yes, I missed the key, one, the sound.
Oh, the sound,
The sound was probably the most extensive one, that we had a lot more specifics about the sound levels and requirements in the new law. And which also included an addendum that specified more clearly how those sound measurements should be taken.
I guess I'm still not really quite clear. If you could try one more time to define what you mean by more manageable or more palatable.
We had been working on even more extensive changes to the law, and some of them covered, like,
I think it's,
Yeah.
I guess the way I would describe it, Mike, is we felt it was important to move forward with these changes, and by targeting the changes to the most critical issues, we felt like we could move the amendment forward more quickly. There's a lot of stuff we wanted to deal with around things like protecting neighbors who were signing good neighbor agreements, around better protections having to do with complaint and dispute resolution, a whole bunch of things that.
A lot more to do with the operations.
That,
There's
yeah,
very little
things
in terms of
around,
after they're permitted, there's no operations.
And we just felt like if we tried to do everything, it was gonna slow down dealing with the most critical issues that we wanted to deal with more immediately. But we still feel like there's a lot of improvements that could be made to the law over time.
Yeah. We were getting pretty much into the weeds, and we have to pull ourselves back out of that and having something that's more targeted towards the key issues. And that would be a good first step if the town wanted to have a more extensive fixes to the law. But those,
Well, knowing that Mike was leaving and that it might be disbanded, get something in.
Well, but in the end, the proposed law that you're bringing to the town board is really just a suggested law.
yes.
It's not what you're
Yes.
saying is, it's not ready to rubber stamp and pass and say this is all ready to go with it, certainly without our
No.
looking at it and considering it.
No, I think the board should look at the law and look at the changes that we recommended in the law, and discuss that, and at some point have Guy look at it, because Guy would definitely.
That would be necessary
Definitely review
too.
it. I'm not sure if we want to involve Guy right away in that. I think the board should at least look at the law and discuss it, so they
I
know
think
what
so, yeah.
they're seeing
Makes sense.
before we present it to Guy.
Yeah.
But there were a couple ways we could have presented those changes. One is just like bulleted items, like change this paragraph and do this, do that. But we decided to revise the law itself So it reads very similar to the current law. And actually, it is the same law. We worked with the current law as the starting point and made the targeted changes.
So if the board takes this proposed law and starts to look at it and.
This proposed recommendation.
The proposed recommendation.
Proposed recommended law, whatever we'll call it, because it's gonna be a law, right? It's in the end.
It would have to, yeah, it would have to go through a public hearing, have to go through, you know, obviously guys' hands and yes.
But we're
It would
planning on
have to
being
guide the law.
a newly revised law,
Yes.
quote unquote.
It would be local law, well, I guess it would be 2017.
Whatever the law-
Whatever the year is of, you know.
So if
for
in the
what it is,
process of
which
the
would
board-
which would replace the 2009 version.
If in the process of the board looking at this and wanting to work on it, wanting to do some revisions on it, are there people from the current wind farm committee that would have an interest in maintaining availability to answer questions or maybe tell us how they got to a place or why they're there?
I think so. I mean, we could continue without reforming the committee for 2017. I mean, I'd be willing to you know, answer questions and give us, you know, give you insight into what our thinking was and why we changed certain things.
So we wouldn't really
Or
have to.
recommended changes, certain things.
We wouldn't really have to extend the life of the wind farm committee. We could actually just ask for individuals
Yeah.
to contribute their
I mean,
information.
there's a draft, there's a full draft of changes, but I don't know that the committee as a whole has come to some final conclusion as a committee saying that they're agreed to everything in all those changes, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, the law that the recommendation we came up with was sort of compromises that not everyone agreed with, in that you know, some, you know, people who were concerned about the wind farm would have put things 5 miles away. I'm exaggerating here.
No, I understand.
And other
Yeah.
people would have put things much closer to the,
Right.
so the setbacks we have
Right.
put in place, we recommended as, you know, 4 times the total height of the turbine, which some people thought was could have been a lot longer distance, and others felt that was shorter, so.
That makes sense. My
Yeah.
my concern was that if we get to a point where we are looking at something like, let's say, the distance away, and we look at a number and it says however many feet it says, and we want to understand the basis of how you came to that, I would like to be able to go back and say, well, how did you come to this, and you know,
Yeah.
why are we there, and so forth.
There are
Yeah.
minutes too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we struggled with that, in terms of, like, the setbacks were like a real struggle for us on the committee.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there isn't a lot of, you know, peer-reviewed scientific saying you should do this, you should do that. It just isn't there, so.
Well, that's why we used the safety standard and walked away from it for sound, because we agreed to disagree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just used the safety standard, because
For the
that's
setbacks,
physics.
yeah.
Right. So you use the generic rather than an actual,
The one
Well,
peer-reviewed
use
scientific.
the peer review paper
Yeah.
that Mike had brought to us, right?
Yeah, the one peer-reviewed scientific paper that we could refer to was Jonathan Rogers' paper on blade throw and ice throw, which was a scientific paper. He was a professor at the University of Georgia. He had 2 co-writers on that. It was published in a journal, an academic journal. So yeah, it's a scientific paper, so it meets that standard. But so that's where we started. And we didn't get much further from that, because there was a lot of evidence similar to that to move that in either direction.
yeah, it's interestingly, when you talk about setbacks, it's brought up the thing that I was thinking about and things I've read about, because if you look at some of the political things that are going on in small towns in the state of New York, there are very clear statements made by a number of groups saying that this town basically developed a wind law that de facto prohibits any wind development in the town, because there is no place anywhere in the town that could actually have these setbacks in place and make this work. So I'm wondering if if that's something we should consider in our deliberations, and in fact, should we go back and say, well, is this law actually making it so that there is no place in this town that there could be a wind development
Yeah.
ever?
Our recommendation was not intending to do
No,
that.
I understand that, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
realize that it's a much longer distance, but it's
Yeah.
not the intention to prohibit that. And
Yeah.
I think that's an argument that, you know, the more we've studied this, is that you know, whatever the distance is, the people, people who want to put in wind farms, at least can look at that and say, okay, I know what my job is to do. My job is to go around to the property owners and get the permissions. And they would know that.
Right.
They just have to go around to more property owners to
Okay.
get those permissions. So it's not like, it's not viable. They would just have to get those permissions from more landowners and perhaps pay out more money. So, but it's not, it wasn't the intent of the committee to come up with a law that prohibits wind development.
And I guess one other question, I don't know if you've researched this at all, but is it in fact legal to protect people from themselves in relation to a wind farm law? Or what we would be considering protecting people from themselves?
Yeah, there were provisions in our law that we did discuss that, and we came up with that, we have certain setbacks, but the developer and the property owners can come up with their own agreements to change that, saying, the property owners say, well, it's okay if you put it, 200 feet from my property, but there was I forget what the numbers were, but there was some minimal baselines that you can't go beyond that, and I think that speaks to that issue.
Remember what we did, I think we put a minimum away from a landowner's house,
Yeah,
just to, from a safety perspective, so that the turbine couldn't fall on someone's house.
Right.
yeah.
We thought about going further than that in a more fulsome law, but in this law, we really put a fairly minimal,
So my question
provision in
there,
there.
Jude, is that legal?
Yeah, it's legal. I mean, you can
Isn't part
pass,
of what you're doing is protecting the town's property values?
yeah.
Well, I think you're putting in that the property owners and the developers can come to really any agreement that they want to, but there's certain protections
certain
that the town says,
basic thresholds.
there's a certain safety threshold that you really shouldn't go beyond.
What gives us the right to do that as a town?
I don't know, that's probably why I should review this.
Yeah.
What gives you the right?
Yeah.
Um,
What
They
gives
tell
us?
you how far your septic tank can be from your
Yeah,
house.
there's a lot
Well,
of
that's exactly what I'm
regulations.
talking
Yeah.
about,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
have the right to say that. I
Yeah.
mean,
I-
and it's, yeah, I mean, we put a small,
But there's a
like-
law in place for that.
Right, and this would be a law in place that would put those
It's a
minimum safety
safety issue,
standards.
right? I mean, are you, the way these contracts are written, the turbine can be literally right next to somebody's house, and all you're saying is, you can't get that close to a house.
Well, but I think you know as well as I do that it's possible that someone could call that a taking and say, I want to put that turbine 100 feet away from my house because I can put another one then right over here, 300 feet away, and it's okay, and I'm going to make a lot of money. What right do you have to tell me that I can't do that?
The same right you have to tell anybody that they can't do any other safety issue on their property, right?
If you can prove that it's a safety issue.
Well, if you have a turbine sitting right above somebody's house, it's a safety issue if a blade falls on the house. It's a safety issue if the turbine falls on the house.
I think there's enough
It's a
evidence.
safety issue if the turbine catches on fire.
But who's making that determination?
The town gets to make those kinds of determinations.
And then they can be sued if somebody says you're faulty in that determination. I'm saying it isn't a safety issue. What business do you have? I mean, I'm just being a little theoretical here.
Well, how's that any different than
but-
saying where the turbine setbacks are generally?
Yeah.
But you could point to manufacturer guidelines that set safety standards.
Manufacturer guidelines.
Yes, they're not, no one wants to put their,
Right.
put the foot down on this. Not the,
Right.
no one does. None, the wind industry doesn't want to set specific numbers.
Right.
The manufacturers aren't going to set those,
You see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
But
I
there's a-
well, I mean, you can talk to Guy Crow, but I mean, I think you
Yeah.
can do it.
I'm just, you know, we're living in litigious times. We really are.
Well,
So,
Well,
back
that's what you're the
to how
town
you,
lawyer for, right, is to
Yeah.
talk to about those issues. I mean,
you wanted to, my understanding of, that you wanted to know whether, his recommendation on whether this committee should continue in its existence. So it seems we're a little far from that.
I'm trying to find parameters under which we can take their existing submittal to us and come up with a law that we are all comfortable with. In the context of that, to me, there's a lot of issues, and many of them are legal issues. And I'm asking if they've looked into the legality of this issue of how close can you put a turbine, and how much, what right do you have as a town to restrict that? I mean, maybe you can restrict it to this, but let's suppose a study comes out next year that says definitively, the US government does a study that says definitively, if you put a turbine anywhere within 5,000 feet of a house, then it's a safety issue for the people there. So that means that every turbine that has to be in keeping with that from then on has to be at least 5,000 feet from the house. That means our law will not be in keeping with that study anymore. Now, if somebody comes along and puts the turbine up 4,000 feet away from that house, somebody else can come along and say, that's only 3,000 feet from my house, and this study, this definitive study was just put out by the government that says this is a safety issue for me, I'm gonna sue you for putting that turbine there. Because even though the town law says that's okay, this government-sponsored safety issue says it's not okay. So it gets really sticky really quick when you do these kind of things.
Well, you can't do anything about that, right? I mean, that can happen. But I think that we do not have authority or funds to go talk to Guy Crow. So we've made a recommendation to the board.
Yeah.
It's the board's responsibility to take that law now to Guy and say, here's what the committee has recommended. Take a look at it, give us your comments back.
Right.
And I, as a board member, have talked to Guy Crow about the process.
Right.
So,
Do you not think this stuff matters?
Do I think this stuff matters?
Yeah, what I'm talking about?
I don't think you can protect against law changes in the future. What we're trying to do is we're trying to address the critical issues around sound, setbacks, noise and all of that.
But Jude, that's what they did with the first law. That's what they did with the first one when they said, here's what we know today, and here's what we think. Let's make a law based on what we know. And here it is 8 years later, 7 years later.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't work anymore. So yeah.
So you change it. I mean,
We can change it, but guess what? Somebody is permitted or about to be permitted or trying to be permitted under that old law, and we don't have anything we can do about it.
We're not
That's a
trying to
that's a
change
separate
the
issue.
law
It's not
retroactively.
changing.
It's not a separate issue. This is,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say, is this is not a separate issue. Law has to be thought about in terms of as large a context as you can think about it. And if you put yourself in a box and say, nobody's allowed to come in my box, well, that's great, that's a good law. And then nobody comes in your box until somebody comes with a big foot and steps on it. Say, well, wait a minute, my
Well,
law
I'm
didn't say you couldn't step on my box.
So,
So now you just crushed my box.
Well, I'm not, okay. I'm
We-
not exactly sure what your point is, right? What we're.
I was afraid of that, yeah.
I mean, all we're trying to do is say, we would like to revise the law to put more stringent restrictions around
I understand
setbacks
that.
and
I do.
noise on a prospective basis. And the idea is to get something moving soon. And so we tried to keep the list of changes fairly narrow to address the most critical concerns.
And I appreciate that you did that. I'm just saying from my side, I don't think it's enough. I
You
think I
don't
need to
think
keep,
what?
I don't think it's enough for me to be happy with it. I think I have to think of all the ramifications that are gonna be coming up and say, okay, let's take what you've done, and let's expand it into the future and
Well, I
say,
do
is this
believe
gonna
that's
apply?
for a different spot in the meeting and perhaps a different meeting.
Well, that's fine. I mean, we're gonna talk about this wind law at some point, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we went to our recommendations, it was always in the understanding that it was not going to affect the current project. that's under review.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So
Yeah.
people
Ann
people
would like me
understood
to
that.
stop, and I'm agreeable to
Well,
stop.
you're off point.
Well,
So,
actually, I'm
um,
not on point.
so-
I'm
so-
I'm very much on point as far as I'm concerned.
So one more thing that came up during our committee meetings was that some felt that, you know, that maybe not a wind farm advisory committee in the context of what existed this year, but some felt the need to, when the issue came up about being energy navigators for the, you know, for the county and Robert Extension and other things, and actually going out helping people reduce their energy needs, and kind of transforming some people's own interest in wanting to do that instead. So, more proactive education and help the people in town.
Thank you. Planning board?
Yes. We had a planning board meeting last Wednesday. We had one application come in front of the board for a general merchandising definition, commercial real estate development for a standalone dry goods store located at 2124 Mecklenburg Road.
Oh, so they didn't stop there.
No, they submitted an application. We had a sketch plan discussion regarding it. We tentatively set a public hearing for the project for January 4th meeting because the applicant said they would have their materials in by yesterday or today. I have not seen anything, so I'm in the process of canceling the public hearing notice. I sent Sue an email, Alice, so. So
But it does require.
it requires, we're requiring a public hearing for this. The site entails, it's on an existing residential property, 1 acre in size. They're proposing to demolish the existing house and do some fairly extensive regrading of the site to put in a 9,000 and some square foot retail store. They have submitted an application for a new curb cut to DOT.
DOT.
And they're waiting for us to respond, or us being the planning board, respond with a evaluation and a seeker before they give their final determination, so.
And you will be following that closely?
Oh, definitely.
Thank you.
Right
Thank
now,
you.
they have their driveway located at the easterly corner of the property, southeasterly corner, which is just below the rise, which I think is very problematic. And the property owner who attended the meeting also stated that he's very careful about how he gets out of his driveway, and he knows the hazards, and we're just concerned that just occasional people going in would not be aware of the treacherousness of Mecklenburg Road in that location.
Yes.
What road is it now?
Mecklenburg Road.
Is that a
And-
county road?
It's just adjoining
It's
the
a
Dandy
State
Mart.
state road.
Is this the one adjoining the Dandy Mart?
This one is just adjacent to the Dandy Mart
Adjacent,
property.
adjacent, yeah,
Just-
adjacent.
just
It's
Dandy Mart.
west of it.
perfectly adjacent.
But they just repaved.
Yeah, and it's a perfect parking lot for them.
Yeah.
But it's not their property.
That's too bad.
So, we will be, I'm assuming we will get a full application in. We probably will end up having a public hearing at the February meeting.
February.
It's kind of the beginning of the roller coaster section.
It's the end of the roller coaster
End
section.
of the
Well,
roller
depending
coaster.
which way you're coming.
Which way you're coming from.
Yeah.
The beginning for
If we're going west, it's the beginning,
Yes, yes.
but I'm not worried about the westbound traffic.
Yeah,
I'm worried about the eastbound traffic.
Yeah.
Don't they have to get an approval from the state?
The DOT, yeah, and I don't think they want that driveway at that location.
Right.
And our local fire department would also, I believe, ask you to be very careful in keeping track of that.
Yes.
Exit
We are,
position.
we're reviewing that quite carefully.
That existing four corners has been problematic traffic-wise.
Yeah, and I
accident-wise,
don't,
too.
I guess repaving the parking lot didn't Across the threshold.
They didn't cut any,
It was just a replacement of
Yeah.
surfacing and
Yeah.
didn't fall
They
under the
didn't.
purview of the planning board, so we didn't have anything to say about it. That's one thing I want to get eliminated, that intersection, you know, 2 driveways within 20 feet of the intersection is a little bit,
Yeah, that,
I mean.
people come out of there and people will actually put
People-
on the signals when you think they're turning on the road, but it ends
Yeah,
up not.
I
it's-
never
it's-
assume they're turning before.
We know that, but.
We know that, but other people
do
don't.
not.
Right. So that keeps the local fire department.
also, I would say a 50-foot curb cut is way too excessive, let alone an 80-foot curb cut.
Oh, for the.
For the existing.
On the 2 existing ones, right?
Yeah.
And if that ever, I'm just waiting for that one to come in for a major change.
Well.
So but that probably will never happen right away.
Yeah.
As you heard, we have a solar application pending. I've transmitted the site plan regulations to the Delaware Solar people. They're aware of that, and we'll probably be having a sketch plan at the January 4th meeting for that project.
And maybe you'd like to appraise the other board members of what will be asked of them.
What will be asked of everything that we look at in the site plan application regulations, including ground cover, visual, all the impacts that we address, we will be reviewing all that.
But aren't they wanting the board to be lead agency in the seeker?
We are, the planning board will be lead agency for that as part of the site plan review application.
Not the board.
Not the town, unless you want to fight us for it.
Oh,
And you
no,
want to do all the review.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Okay.
if, I didn't hear them say they were asking for a pilot agreement at this meeting.
No, you didn't hear it at this meeting.
No, but I'm assuming they will be, which would be a town board action. And you would be, of course, an involved agency in the environmental review. And if the town board would like to do all the environmental review, fine, but I mean, we take it on, the planning board expects that to be our responsibility in this type of development. since-
Oh, that isn't what I understood. Good.
So we will be taking lead agency. You'll be getting the notice as soon as we get all the application stuff in.
Sounds like you were researching the opt-out of the solar farm tax election. Is that, like,
The what?
the
That's a
solar-
done deal.
That's a done deal?
Yeah,
How does
we
that
are.
affect, how does that affect the pilot agreement?
You've exempted out
Because
of
we
the-
exempted the wind farm, it goes for all
Okay.
other renewable energy
And that's fine, and
projects.
then that sets you up to set up the pilot agreement.
Well, yeah,
And then they have to deal with the county and
IDA.
the school district too.
right, but they're going through IDA. Or at least that's their plan last
I
week.
think, I know I was at another town board meeting with the same group making similar applications, and that they were recommending going to the IDA at that point. That's, so, and we reviewed the solar considerations that we want to add to the site plan regulation law.
Right.
And I drafted up a preliminary thing, and I asked asked Sue if I could get a document, a Word document of that proposed solar, no, the site plan regulation law, site plan, which I have a PDF version, but I don't have a Word version of it.
Word.
So that I can modify that to incorporate the appropriate language to make sure that all solar projects over a certain size are regulated. And we're looking at the 20 kilovolt threshold for solar projects to be major projects that would require site plan review. And under 20 kilowatts, 20,000 watts.
Considered residential?
is more typically
Small.
residential, right? As opposed to any square footages, unless people, typically, what we're saying for these 10 acre sites, 10 to 12 acre sites for a 2 megawatt facility, depending on what's happening.
Well,
So-
if you do it on the output, then if they get more efficient, you don't have to change your rule.
Right, right. No, I mean, it's just, yeah, so that keeps us covered for any of that. I don't think they're ever gonna get to the point where it's less than a half an acre for a couple megawatts, but they are improving by 5 or 10% every 3 or 4 years in efficiency. So, those are the actions that we've been going on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sounds like you need all your members to attend every meeting.
Oh, yes, we do. That was the other thing.
Oh, did you get any response?
We've seen one application. There was one letter that was submitted. I don't know if we have any others. Alice?
None have come to me.
For the vacancy.
We're, for the one vacancy.
So you'll be making a recommendation?
We reviewed it and we're neutral on it. It's up to the board to decide.
Okay, can you forward that letter, or did you?
I haven't forwarded, I will, I'll
Okay.
send you an email.
Because the organizational meeting will be
Right.
our next regular meeting.
We had been hoping for more
Interest?
people being interested, and a couple of the board members are gonna reach out to a couple other people, but.
Do we have a deadline for those applications?
I think the original deadline and the original advertisement was passed was in December.
December 5th or
Right,
something.
but we
is
have,
my
we have
recollection.
2 alternate positions that we'd like to get people into also.
Into, also.
So,
So, are we gonna schedule a vote on that, at the next meeting?
Appointments of boards are done as part of the organizational meeting, which is traditionally the first regular meeting of the year.
Mhm. And since we only have one applicant, then we have to either decide that applicant is acceptable or not acceptable? Is that how you're thinking of it, or is do we have any reason to reject that application? Is that something we can do?
we saw no reason to reject the application.
We take the recommendation from the planning board.
Well, sometimes
Or
you do, sometimes you don't.
Traditionally.
We take it and then we make our own decision.
Traditionally, we've accepted.
Well,
No, the last time around you didn't.
The last time we
We
didn't.
didn't?
And, no.
Oh, we didn't?
You didn't.
We voted for somebody entirely different than they recommended.
Sorry.
It's okay. So, I mean, and this applicant has been to several planning board meetings and has shown interest, so, I think,
Well, I will circulate the letter of interest to the board
yep.
and would welcome feedback.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So you're welcome.
Rec Partnership and Enfield Community Council, there's no one present, I don't think. Enfield Volunteer Fire Company, did they send a report?
Yep. Total calls for November were 22. Mutual aid given 3, 1 to Newfield and 2 to Trumansburg. EMS calls were 12. MVA 3, 1 service call and 3 fires. And December trainings, general meeting, work detail, truck checks, cleaning, and the next officers meeting is January 3rd.
Okay, facilities manager. Mike, you had indicated to me that we should discuss the highway building.
I did, yeah, I think it was the October meeting, Michael had asked me to bring some numbers in relation to what some possible costs would be for some of the possible choices of repair. I also want to say that I did actually call the Labella report worthless at one point, and that was wrong. I don't really think it's worthless, and I think it was my problem in that it wasn't what I expected. And I think that's actually my problem in that I should have made it more clear to them what I expected. the fact that it only had information in it that I already knew is, again, not really relevant, but it doesn't make it worthless. So if that ever got to you, Dan, I apologize for saying that, as I don't feel like that's true. I feel it was accurate, and I feel it was very relevant. I feel like there are some problems in it in relation to moisture control that are not perhaps answered correctly. But the fact is, all the leading engineering companies these days are really having issues with moisture control, and even the ones that are at the top of their thing recommend and design things that are supposed to fix moisture control, and they find out after the thing is built that it actually didn't work. So I don't think anybody knows the right answer every time on that one.
I think on moisture control for this type of commercial industrial building, generally for this size of a building, for someone like a Dresser Rand or a Corning Incorporated, which we do a lot of work for, you end up with probably something that would be an additional $500,000 just for heating, ventilation and stuff for moisture control in this kind of a facility.
With all the people that I've talked to, there are basically three answers
Ventilation.
to moisture control in this building. One of them is to do significant amounts of ventilation, and if it's just direct ventilation, that means that not only is the moisture going out the door,
The heat is too.
so is the heat. So in the end, it's a very expensive choice. It's probably the cheapest up front, because it's just a matter of pulling big fans, but obviously when you start keeping your heater running 24/7 to keep the building warm, it's not a good choice. The second choice is to use either what they call an ERV or an HRV. It's a heat recovery ventilation or energy recovery ventilation system.
And that's what costs the extra money.
Right, which are very expensive. They do save up to 70 or 80% of the heat by transferring it past the colder air coming in and doing something that it actually would have to be energy recovery ventilation, because that's the only one that actually really works well with the moisture that well. Otherwise, you're not doing that. And that is really expensive too. The consensus from all the people that I've talked to starts with what your report starts with, which is basically a drain to take out some of the water that comes off of the trucks when they clean the trucks off. But it's not anywhere near enough with the amount of moisture that's actually coming into that building in the wintertime. Just the fact that that water is going onto the floor, it's going into the air, and even if 80 or 90% of it drains off through the floor, you're still leaving a very significant amount of moisture from the truck cleaning on the floor and in the building itself. At the same time, when they have to use that building to bring the sand in to dry it or to keep it from freezing, basically, because the sand has a significant amount of moisture in it. The sand comes into a warm place, obviously the moisture in the sand begins to evaporate into space. So the only answer to that one is to stop bringing moisture into the building, basically, which means you don't put the sand in the building and you don't wash the trucks in that building or in that enclosed space, basically. It has to have a separate space. So when we're going to talk about dollars, I'm just going to do a really off-the-cuff ballpark because I haven't really had anybody do this, but to put in drains, it probably would cost us somewhere in the range of $20,000 to really do a good job putting some drains in there, so we could have an area that would be well drained for Buddy to bring the trucks in that need to drain out. So that could take out a significant amount of the moisture. The air sealing would help. We might spend $10,000 on that.
The what?
Air sealing, which would keep moisture in, but it also would keep heat in as well, and could make a difference long term for how we deal with it, because if we can keep more heat in there, then we can afford to use heat to evaporate moisture to some degree. We can afford to either use ventilation or HRVs to evaporate the moisture, because you do lose some heat in the ERVs, basically, when they come in. At the same time, the ERVs or the HRVs, my rough guess is it's not going to be less than $50,000 to $75,000 to put those in there.
The what?
$50,000 to $75,000.
No. HVPs?
HRV is heat recovery ventilation, and an ERV is energy recovery ventilation. And basically, it removes moisture from the air and freshens the air, brings in fresh air, which in the wintertime is usually fairly low moisture air. At the same time that it doesn't just take the air out and doesn't take hot air out and just bring cold air in. It transfers the hot air past the cold air so that some of the heat from the hot air transfers over to the cold air that's coming in, and you don't lose all that heat in the process of bringing the cold air in.
Is there any concept of like a traditional dehumidification system? Is
You
that,
could.
is that
You-
unreasonable for that
you
size
could
of a building?
You could put dehumidifiers in the space.
And I'm not
yes.
talking about like, the residential, but is there like commercial kinds of dehumidifiers that?
They do have
work in that
commercial
space?
dehumidifiers. Dehumidifiers are very expensive to run.
Yeah.
They really take a lot of energy to run, and they're pretty. I mean, you could set them up, I guess, so that they would drain as well. I don't know a lot about dehumidification systems. I don't know. Dan, if you
It's
know.
basically a big air conditioner.
Yeah.
And you've got to pull the air through it, and then you.
So what was that dollar amount attached to that?
I would say $50,000 to $75,000 at the low end, probably. The commercial HRV units that we put in a house usually run somewhere in the $5,000 range for 2,000 square foot, 2,500 square foot house. So 10 times that, I still don't think would have the capacity, because even in a house, even when you put an HRV or an ERV unit in, if you overload moisture into the space, they're not going to be able to keep up with it unless you get a very, very large system. And basically, you're just expanding the system to a very large square footage or cubic footage of space with a very large moisture content that you have to remove. So, at the same time, I think we do need to do the insulation, and I think we do need to do vapor barriers at some point. There's a significant amount of work to do that at some point, and that's definitely more in the $100,000 range to put even a minor addition, let's say to come close to doubling the value of what the insulation is now, or maybe 2/3 again as much. Right now, the insulation value is really, really low. It wouldn't, if you tried to build the building right now, it wouldn't pass code standards for what the energy code and what the building code requires right now.
What's the R value?
It's R19 walls, and it's R19 fiberglass walls, which in the situation that they're in, it's been shown in building science that fiberglass, basically when it's installed loosely and not completely, they get convection currents going in the space itself where the air is moving inside the space.
Oh, yeah.
So basically you're pulling in cold air from the outside constantly and moving that air around, so it really doesn't do R19 anymore. You're lucky if it's doing an R10
Would a
at
blown-in
that point.
insulation, or is that inappropriate for that kind of space?
Blown in doesn't get convection currents in it. But you also have to think about driving moisture through the walls. If you don't fix the moisture problem inside the building itself,
Then you have it inside the walls.
then you're always going to have a problem in those walls no matter what you do. So we really have to do a larger strategy. So to me, then it comes down to how much money are we willing to put aside, or can we decide that we need to put aside in order to do this work, and how do we want to format the schedule? What do we want to do first? How much can we afford to do? How important is this for us to do this right away, or we need to make those choices?
Well, my first question is do you have an opinion on whether this is a design flaw or not? Is that the right term, Dan?
Well, in relation to what context is the problem? Design flaw in relation to who would be the authority in place that is judging design flaw. Is it going to be the state building code that we're going to use? I think that was, is Alan still here? Was that built under 2007?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so probably that, I mean, R19 definitely was the wall value in 2007.
Yeah, certainly for commercial.
Yeah, so you'd have trouble proving design flaw, I think. You could prove poor installation, probably, and definitely poor installation is a part of it, but the fact is, design flaw is what's happened over the last, let's say, 10 to 15 years, is that building science, the people that study buildings and how they work, has shown that many of the things that we've done that were building code things that were approved over the last 10 or 15 years were actually wrong or really poorly thought out. And one thing that's happening is that building codes are coming out now that are very different. Things like moisture management and control are very different. Our values, insulation values are very different these days in terms of what's allowed and what's not allowed. In California, they're coming out and saying basically, I think in 2021 or something, you're gonna have to have buildings that are completely energy independent. So it's going in that direction, and that's so far away from our 2001 and our 2007 buildings. It's a geometric addition to that. I mean, it's like 10 times better, not just twice as good. So it's really significantly different.
Well, I believe that we need to be very sure that this is, whether this is a design flaw or not, in relation to being prudent with our taxpayer money.
From what I know, I would say not, but I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not in a position to say whether that's provable or not. When I talk to lawyers, they find stuff that's so out of my awareness of being a problem or a truth or whatever that I just think, wow, I'm mystified.
Well, I'm going to check on this more carefully from that point of view.
Okay, there's a fellow here who may have some thoughts if we want to.
I think the town board approved the design and everything way back when.
Building, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the town board approving it is great, but the town board is not an agency that has a critical oversight in terms of knowledge. So the knowledge base is what the building inspector would say, and if it was built to code. And if it was built to code, then a lawyer is going to come in and look at the plans, and he's going to say, these are the plans, are they to code? And if they are to code, and if it was built in keeping with those plans, I wouldn't think you could go too far.
I'm sure they were at the time.
Well, that's what I think too. That's
Yeah.
what I think. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, Alan, but.
Yeah, I believe the building was built to code, or designed to current code.
Right.
And was built to the current code and passed inspections, it was built correctly.
Yeah.
I think the issues are, as have been stated, they, when they did electrical work, they covered the vapor barrier, which is allowing moisture to pass through the vapor barrier.
Yeah.
At the target points right where the electrical boxes are. And you're also right about the amount of moisture coming in with the trucks covered with snow.
Probably nobody asked Buddy, are you gonna be dumping loads of wet sand and washing all your trucks in the middle of winter in this place? Maybe they didn't ever ask that question, and that would be an architect's oversight, and malpractice, maybe you could prove with an architect. But
Didn't they know they were building a building for the highway department?
you would be amazed at what architects and engineers can miss.
I would be amazed, I built, but I also amazed how good some engineers and architects are.
Some of them
And
can be very good.
to put a
yes.
building, a
Yeah.
highway department building in without floor drains,
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense at all.
That's true.
Well, there is a floor drain in it.
Or
Yeah,
for
but
a
not
drainage
enough to
system
do
for
what
if you're
needs
washing
to.
a truck.
Well,
To put-
It's
to
a
build
closed
building-
system, it was code.
Was that a matter of design, not putting the drains in, or is that a matter of like the
well,
drains are planned,
okay,
but not
when
put
you
in?
look at the building code, those are minimum requirements.
Yeah.
Sometimes operational things need additional consideration.
Tell me what your point is, because I want to know what you're saying.
My point is, a competent engineer, and there's really good ones, or architect, can build a building, road department building that can service trucks and not have problems.
Right, I agree.
Now, it may cost 3 times as much as you wanted to pay.
Right.
It may cost the same as you wanted to pay, but it can be done.
So
Chris
what-
Bell's did it for years,
all,
years and years.
almost all of the highway departments around Tompkins County don't have this much.
I
problem.
understand that, so
Yeah.
to say that it was built to code, that, it was not built properly. It was not designed properly, because if it was designed properly,
Exactly.
it would not have this problem.
And the question now is, does that mean that there is some legal culpability on someone's part? And that's
Yeah.
the issue that Ann is asking.
Right, and that's beyond.
Well, that is something that we need to turn a little bit of attention to.
How
I'm
long
not
ago
saying it's
was this
overriding, but.
Right.
2007?
I don't disagree at all.
2000, no, that was 2009.
10.
It's
2010.
2010.
You might have had legal recourse. My guess is the statute of limitations for any action against,
It has not expired.
it is not expired.
It has not expired.
Well, what's the difference between this building and the ones that don't have that moisture problem?
Moisture.
Well, that's,
The other
That's-
buildings must have moisture in them too, right? I mean,
Well-
from the trucks? from-
they do, but they also have sand storage facilities. So the sand doesn't come into the building. And I assume that they probably are not looking at the fact that the walls are sweating, that there's water dripping from the roof, and the next minute, opening up the doors, bringing in 3 trucks covered with snow and ice, and taking the hose and washing them off. That's not a design issue, that's a commissioning issue, how you use your building issue.
So the-
You have to use your building differently.
Do other highway departments, they don't do that? They don't bring trucks in and wash them?
I actually didn't ask them about that. I looked at,
Architects and answered.
I looked at a lot of the buildings, and I talked to them about whether they have moisture problems, and I looked at the layout of the walls, and they're very similar to what we have. They're better insulated, most of them.
So you don't get it wet.
But often, most of
That
them,
was
actually,
taken out of the plans.
interestingly enough, Henry, almost all of them have 2 different buildings, or 3. And one of the buildings is where all of the sand and the salt goes, basically, it doesn't come into the building. And some of them even have a facility where it's a very low heated building, it's meant to be outside, and they take the trucks over there and they wash the trucks off and they do that. But there's a garage door between that part of the highway department building and the other part of the highway department building. This is not particularly heated, they have a hose that they bring in from the other room, wash the trucks off, and if it's really, really cold, it's a problem because they can freeze again. But typically, they don't throw all of that moisture into the heated space where it's enclosed and kept tight so that the moisture has to stay in.
So it seemed to me that the warmer the building is, the more condensation you're gonna have, and more it's gonna be a problem, right?
When you have water inside a building, and let's say the relative humidity is 90% or something, as soon as it goes from a warmer place and it gets to a place where it's colder, cold air doesn't hold as much water, so that moisture condenses at that point. So somewhere in that wall is something they call the dew point, okay? And that dew point can be at the outside of the wall if you're really well insulated, and that way you don't get moisture inside the wall. Or if you're not well insulated and if you have a lot of air infiltrating, that dew point is somewhere inside the wall, or perhaps even on a really cold day on the surface of the inside wall. It may be that the surface of that inside wall, made of metal, is so cold that all of that moisture just condenses, which is what's happening,
If it's warm enough in the building.
on the metal panels on the inside of the building, because that's where the dew point is. It's cold enough on those walls that the moisture is just condensing on those walls. So the insulation is a real help. It's an issue, but it's not going to solve it. All it's going to do is make your moisture inside the building get higher and higher, and then it's going to find ways to drive through into that wall, and then it's going to start condensing somewhere inside that wall. So your fiberglass insulation is going to get wet, and it's going to get sopping, and it's going to eventually fall down on the floor, and you'll have big spots in the middle of the wall where you have no insulation at all.
How warm is that building? when they have that condensation problem, I wonder.
I don't know what temperature they keep it at, but I assume they keep it in the 60s probably.
Have we done a heat audit or an audit where you can show like infrared, like where the
Well,
gaps are?
So here's where I was yelling at Labella, because we didn't ask them to do such a large, huge thing, and we should have.
We did.
Yeah, that's my fault
Do
for
an
not
infrared
for
scan,
not
but-
being.
But they did some scan.
I think we did temperature readings inside the,
This would be a good time of year to do that, too. 'cause-
They're very easy to do, and you know, unfortunately, the stupid thing is that anybody with a laser temperature gauge can go over and do that stuff, and you start using your brain and you put together the numbers and the thoughts and stuff, and in 2 or 3 hours, you pretty much can figure out what's going on with the building. It's really simple to do, and it's not hard to do. I'm a little, the interface with Labella was poorly done, and I'm gonna take the blame for that. I just didn't make it clear enough to them what we needed, and I should have done that.
Is it expensive that, can we hire someone separately to do that kind of audit for us?
Well, if I thought Buddy wouldn't kick me out or shoot me or hide me in the closet, I would go do it myself, but I don't think I feel comfortable doing that right now. I'll get you my laser temperature thing, and you can go. What you do is you point it at something and it says, this is the temperature of this, and this is the temperature of this, and it just, you get a reading in 2 seconds, and you start to see what's going on.
The heating system in that building is not designed to heat, the air is designed to heat
It's
the
radiant,
objects.
right.
It's a
radiant.
radiant heating system. It's basically a ventilation.
It wasn't done well. It really wasn't done well.
Yeah, and then there were a lot of inconsistencies in
Yeah.
the vapor barriers and things, wind barriers.
In the construction
The construction itself.
part.
There's no sill seal that's keeping wind from blowing up under the walls and into the walls.
I had a plumber once that used to do my plumbing for me, and I did construction management on the job. And he got mad at me and he said, "You're making all the money. You don't have to be doing this." So he said, "I'm gonna do construction management in my next job." So he got all the plumbing really right. He did really great. And everything else was awful. And the job was just awful because he didn't understand how to coordinate the needs of the plumbing with the needs of the air conditioning and the heating and the moisture control and the insulation levels and everything else that happened in that building. That's what happens typically in a situation where you get a poor building.
But a good design does all that, and the manager only implements it.
But I think in this instance that it was a design build, so the person who designed it also built it and had a contract to do the whole thing, and I just don't think they were really good at what they did.
But you have to have a licensed architect to build that, so someone has to sign off on that.
What is usage of the whole thing?
Mike, originally there was salt sheds to be built and storage area for salt and sand. And in an effort to cut the cost, they cut those out.
Well, it actually is a little more complicated than that. I think Ann could probably give you a very long narrative about how that happened, and it wasn't quite so much to cut the cost. It was a lot of misunderstandings that made that salt shed not happen. And we have been talking for the last 2 years at least about the idea of doing a salt shed and where to get the money for it, because again, we're talking about $100,000 or so to build a salt sand shed to do that. So and you'll forgive me for harping on this, but when I was talking to Dan before, I was saying, we can't do all this stuff without getting more money to do it with. We're not wasting money. We're not giving it to the masses for free. We're down to zilch, you know. We get to the end of the year, like Buddy said, he's got $20,000 left. That's not a lot of money. So I don't know where it's going to come from, other than that we actually seriously talk about sometime raising taxes, and we just do that. And
I think there's other options though, like, you really think it's gonna cost that much to do the building for the sand?
I've talked to a number of people about it. Danby built one with their CHIPS money one year, and they said that the best, cheapest option they could find, and they did a lot of the work themselves, was $100,000.
And that's probably buying like new beams.
Well, they didn't use beams. They actually used those giant concrete highway blocks and put a base of those up to about 6 foot high, and then they
Cart
put
building.
a
I
canvas.
was gonna say, 'cause if you need
tent.
beams, you know, we're right
Yeah.
up there.
They put a canvas tent over the top of it, which has to be replaced every 10 years or so, so.
Yeah, like,
But even that was $100,000 for that to happen, so.
Well, if they lower the temperature in the room where the area where the trucks are stored, that would reduce the condensation, wouldn't it?
It would to some degree, yeah, you're right.
And do
Yeah.
they, and I know they do mechanical work in there. And
They do mechanical
Is that all
work,
the same
yeah.
open area where they do the
It's
mechanical work? and
all
store the
one
truck?
big space.
I wonder if
yeah.
they could partition it off, and the place where they do the mechanical work, they could keep it warmer where they're working, and where the trucks are just stored.
You'd have to partition it, that was one of the things I was thinking, Henry. Well, and the same thing, even if we don't build a sand storage, we could partition off a section and say, this is where the sand's gonna go. Have that be unheated and have it have its own ventilation system and be separate. But what we have to do is decide what plan we're gonna do, and that's gonna depend on how much money we think we can spend. So we can either budget it ahead of time and say, what can we do with $100,000? Or we can go in the other direction, we say, what do we have to do? And then figure out how much that's gonna cost and put that in the budget.
Well, it wouldn't cost much just to build a wall inside the building to partition it off, I wouldn't think.
It maybe wouldn't cost much. Let's say it costs $20,000 because.
I can build a wall cheaper than that.
But then you have to put in the ventilation and the heating system. You have to take the heating system out of that area, which is already in there, and it's part of it. It's thermostat controlled to heating systems that are other parts. You gotta separate the thermostats from there.
Okay.
And then you gotta do the wiring in the wall. You know, it's.
More than just putting a wall.
Yeah, I understand it. I don't disagree with you. It just gets complicated is all. And then it comes to a matter of deciding, is it worth spending $20,000 to build that partition, take away that much space into the highway department, and that means, of course, negotiating with our highway superintendent
Oh,
to
boy.
try and find an amenable solution to the whole thing, which is why I was trying to say tonight, let's talk to each other. But, so, in the end, we have to decide if the $20,000 is really a better choice, then long-term, maybe we should spend $100,000, because in the end, we'll actually be more ahead dollar-wise from it as well.
Well, I don't
Those
think
are
they should be
choices.
heating any more than they need to just to work on the trucks.
Right.
So if it's just one big open area and have to keep the whole thing warm enough.
They
so
can
that
work on the
won't-
trucks in the warm area.
Yeah.
They can just clean the trucks like they do in Lansing, out in the unheated space, you know, and clean the moisture off them, so. And put the drainage system, and that's the other thing, you gotta put drainage in for it and everything else,
'Cause
because there's no.
that's gotta be expensive to heat such a huge area too. If it's
It
not
is.
really necessary, then partition it off and don't heat
It was
them.
not designed well. It really wasn't. It really wasn't thought out well. So,
Didn't you say tonight that Danby used their CHIPS money to build their salt storage?
that's what they said, yes.
That's what they said?
One year, they took all their CHIPS money and they just dedicated it to their salt storage building and didn't do anything else with it that year. And it's allowable to do that. The CHIPS money can be used for that.
Well, you know, that form that he's gonna put in front of us, that really is town board should
But-
guide that. It's
It-
not just a sign off.
It's just at the same time, Ann, if Buddy's gonna withdraw himself from this process, we're not gonna get any better off if we withdraw ourselves and start to make unilateral decisions too. I think we have to find some way that we can negotiate with him. I mean, maybe it's not possible, but I think, I feel
You wanna
like we
try
gotta.
some more?
It would be so much better if we could come to some kind of a mutual, understandable solution, you know? And ask me that an hour ago, I would say, no, I don't wanna try anymore. But, I don't know, I mean, as me, as Mike Carpenter, who gets pissed just like Buddy does, I'd say, no, I don't wanna try anymore. But as the guy who's on the board up here, that's trying to do the best thing for the town of Enfield, I'd say, yeah, we have to keep trying. I don't know what else to do.
Was Beth the liaison, highway liaison
Yeah,
last time?
Beth is coming on, she
No,
likes
that's
to do that work.
Maybe Beth is our savior.
And without a wind farm advisory committee, she would have something to do.
Well, she's already got the comprehensive plan.
Oh,
that she's trying to
that's right,
finish.
she got the comprehensive plan too.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's almost, the comprehensive plan's almost done.
It's comprehensive.
We'll volunteer.
I think she's.
Can the drains be done separate from the air sealing?
Yes. Yeah, the drains can have they have a trap in them so that there's no air coming in.
No, but you can do one.
You can do one without.
You don't have to do the other, well, you should do the other also, but doing one is a separate job, not.
That's kind of why I broke them up into those numbers,
Okay.
because all those things could be separate from each other.
Separate.
But we should make a plan that includes either some or all of them, and decide which ones are gonna give us the most bang for our buck, or which ones are most important to do first.
All right, and maybe by the January meeting or the February meeting, you could do that?
I definitely can make a plan, I don't mind doing that. At the same time, it's gonna be subjective to some degree, you know, I mean, the reason why I was a little pissed off about the Labella report, again, my fault, was that they told me everything that I already knew. I knew all that stuff already. I know a lot more than that about this. But in my work, I'm a guy that went through 11th grade in high school, has no letters after his name, and when I go up to people like engineers at Tatum Engineering and stuff, and I say, this is a better way to do it, they say, yeah, right, and do their drawings. We start to put it in, they mess up, the homeowner says, why is it going wrong? I say, well, let me just change this. So I change it on the job, and if the building inspector doesn't like it, I just go to the engineer and I say, will you please redraw these to do them the way that I just told you to do it? Okay, this is a problem I have, and I get pissed off at myself all the time because I don't know how to tell people that I actually know how to do a lot more things than some of the people with the numbers and the letters after their name. Because I've been doing it for 50 years now. I've been building schools and churches and everything else, you know, and $1 million, multi-million-dollar project. I know how this stuff works mostly. I don't know everything, but I know a lot more than some guy who just got out of engineering school who's trying to figure out which way the pen goes, you know? So I can do some of this stuff, but I'm gonna say, this is what we should do, and if the town takes my advice and somebody doesn't like it, if this fellow over here says, what are you doing listening to that jerk on the town board? He's just a guy, you know? I'm gonna sue the town board, or I'm gonna get after him when he runs for election. I don't wanna do that to the town. I don't wanna put you in that position of saying, why are you listening to this guy? Well, what you really need is a piece of paper signed by the engineer with the numbers after his name, and then we can do it. You know, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, it's legal, so.
But you understand enough to ask the right questions.
I do, yes, yeah.
And that's
And what I would like to do, what I wanted to do in the first place was actually to sit down with the engineers and to go over the whole thing myself and to have a back and forth conversation with them and say, here's what I think, here's what I think the problems are, but I didn't do that. I listened to their presentation, they said, we're gonna do it. I said, okay, do it, I'm gonna hope that it comes out the way that I want it. And I got pissed off that it didn't, but that's my fault. So, right now, I would be happy to go back to Labella and sit down with the guys in Labella and say, can we talk about this for an hour or two and see if we can find a really good solution, you know? And
They can do that.
yeah,
They will do that.
I think that would be a really great way to do it. And, you know, I'd love to know that we could actually ask Buddy to be a part of the process and say, will you stop washing trucks in the middle of the thing, you know? I don't know that we can ask him that. I don't know if we have to give him a truck washing bay before he'll say, yes, that's okay, you know, to not wash trucks in here. So it's a little bit sticky.
Certainly is a reality. Certainly is a reality.
It's a reality, yeah. And so I'm in this position right now where I don't really know what to recommend to the board, and I don't really know how to say, this is what we should do and this is how we proceed. If I was contracting this job, if you told me to do it and you said, do the right thing, that would be fine. I know who I'd go talk to, I know the people I'd talk to, I know how I'd get the right answer. I would get it all figured out, I would give it to Alan, Alan would make sure that it was code compliant, and we would spend the dollars ahead of time that we did, and they would be doing, but I'm not, and I can't be in that position because I'm on the town board, and I'm not a contractor anymore anyways, I'm just a construction manager, so.
Okay, so we'll keep this on the agenda.
I hope you don't feel that I was,
And we'll talk with you. They've been wanting to talk with you anyhow.
okay, great, thanks.
TTAG, it's the end of the year. Jay Franklin came to give us a report on real property tax exemptions, which was sort of interesting because we had just passed a new updated senior exemption. So I knew somewhat what he was talking about. Then there was the presentation on a new website. There's a Tompkins County Trails website that's just getting, I think by now it's up and running, which tourism in the, Tompkins County has been supportive of that. And the people in the county are really starting working on community choice aggregation. And there's a clean energy committee, and we are looking for new leadership for the coming year. Our next order of business is the Black Oak Wind Farm road use agreement. I believe I asked you to bring a copy.
I was asked to bring a copy of the wind, proposed wind energies modification. But I thought there would be a copy of the road use agreement plan here. I've got all these other plans today that we're not gonna discuss, but we don't have the one, I don't have the one we are gonna discuss. Which I thought.
So no one's ever gotten a copy of the road use agreement?
Not the new one.
I probably have one in my stuff here.
Well, what do you mean by new?
The one that was most recently modified that we're supposedly gonna discuss tonight.
Can you see if I can find you one?
Road use agreement.
Is it the one that says the road preservation use and repair agreement of blank 2015 by and between?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Don't they all say that?
Is it dated?
Yes, they probably do.
So how do you know this is the latest, the one we're discussing?
Because it's the only one. Oh, that's not nearly one.
Has Buddy reviewed the road use agreement?
The lawyer says he has.
Okay. I wish we wouldn't have chased him up.
Did I do that? I'm sorry.
It's all right. It would
He
be
was
nice
on
to ask him
control.
questions. So,
Alan, can we employ that new copier? Does it have a color component? Okay.
I read the one that was emailed to me, but I don't remember all the details, and I don't know if this is the same one that was just emailed to me.
Okay, well.
I emailed him so many times just to put a date on the front. We discussed it in the meetings, I emailed her twice, and top right, just like that, just like on this agenda, top right corner date, then I'll know if it's the one that we're looking at.
Right.
It's not hard to put that on there.
Okay, well, I did send an email about this being the town's document. Because I believe that we have a responsibility to protect the town roads. And so I think it behooves us to enter into a road use agreement with the project. I asked the town attorney in August of 2015 to compile a road use agreement. I believe that recently, this fall, Guy made some very minor modifications in answer to Buddy's concerns. And I will provide you with our attorney's statements regarding what he's done to satisfy Buddy's concerns.
What about Beth McGee's comment?
The county road has nothing to do with us.
Okay.
That's the county's deal. They've already entered into a road use agreement a long time ago.
Well, they have a draft one, I don't know if they've signed
They
it.
finalized it? Well, I couldn't get Joe out of the meeting, so.
Is there a
But
public copy of this document?
there's been copies
I don't
given.
have one.
I was just trying to figure out if the copy I have agrees to the one you're looking at.
Right, I've got 10 different copies, but I don't know which is,
Is it on our website?
I don't know. I don't believe it was sent to
I
Sue,
would
no.
doubt it. I would doubt it.
So
Well, you know, I will certainly focus on this more.
What would really be helpful is if, just like this agenda, date upper right corner, all these plans had a date in the upper right corner.
Yeah, well, as I say, this was a year ago, August.
You get one
Well,
too?
the one I just got in email didn't have a date on it.
That's right.
I really wish it did. It would just make it so much easier to know that I'm looking at the same version everybody else is. Just top, front page, right in the top right corner, just date right there.
Well, I'm not going to agree to the top right corner.
Okay.
It might be
Somewhere on
the
the front
bottom
page.
left.
Okay, that worked
It
too.
might be the bottom left.
That would be fine too. And page numbers would be good too.
Yeah, there is no document control.
Is there a general, I mean, does the board feel that this is a board obligation, or this is important?
What, to pass the road use agreement?
To have a road use agreement?
Yeah, I guess I would say it was important.
And what are the factors that the town board needs in this document in order to feel comfortable going forward? Okay, you want to ensure that everybody is looking at the same exact document. Okay, I got that. What else?
I would want to know that Dan and Buddy are happy with it.
You want to know that Dan and Buddy are happy with it.
I'm always happy.
You are a
agree with
happy
everything,
guy.
but I'm
You are a happy guy.
I want to know that Dan and Buddy agree with it.
I think Buddy had some concerns about the financial security and when it is paid.
Yeah, he mentioned that quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Was that addressed in the latest version? I don't know. If it was addressed to his satisfaction, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked him if Buddy's gonna be happy, and I shouldn't have, not happy. Agreed.
Buddy's concerns have been addressed.
What were those concerns?
The turnkey and
We need to put a clause in for continuation.
Which is a weird phrase for a road, but.
I don't think you get to say it. I don't think you get to comment on that.
And my
It's a
version
funny
is
phrase.
included.
So,
I wish you were here because we could ask him, say, are you okay
no,
with this
it's right
version?
here. The legal opinion is here of his concerns. It's 2 pages I just gave you. They're really in red. And it was the 14th of November, so dated. 2 pages that Alan just gave you.
Alan put a date on it.
Okay.
No, I put a date
Oh,
on it.
thank you.
I don't think Alan gave me 2 pages.
Alan didn't give you 2 copies?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
I'm
right up there.
sorry.
See it?
Oh, I was looking for red, never mind.
Well, you don't get red
No,
because
no, it's
he
just other
was
than that.
very prudent and didn't get
Yeah.
colored.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, that's fine.
Okay, so,
Are these Buddy's concerns?
yeah.
Does it state that?
It's
Well,
Guy
it says
responding
Buddy.
To Buddy. It's Guy responding
Okay,
to
okay,
Buddy.
I see his name. now, okay.
Okay, so, back to, okay, you want, the latest dated copy and everybody's gonna, have a new copy and you're to get rid of all your old copies. And Buddy has to be happy and Dan has to be happy. Any other things that the board is concerned about a road use agreement?
That would pretty much do it for me, I think.
When you say happy, you mean like a letter from Buddy, a letter from Dan?
Verbal would be okay.
Verbal saying, yeah, or, I would say either verbal or a letter saying, yeah, I read this version of this road use agreement, I'm okay with it.
So the statement from our attorney that he's addressed all his concerns isn't enough for you?
Well, his head might explode if we pass it and he decides that he wasn't happy with it.
Yeah,
Public should see it.
I think it's still to get it from the first person, you know, from that perspective too. I mean, I'm glad Guy has addressed that, which is good, but I think,
We should ask him about that maybe before he left.
Well, and start that healing process that you want to talk about a little bit too,
so,
What?
If you talk to Buddy, if Buddy and him talked about it ahead of time, it'd open up that chance to recoup as a board with Buddy, that we seem to be missing a little respect there on his part. Earn respect, you have to give respect.
Too busy bickering with each other.
Your opinion?
What's that?
Your opinion?
Oh, shut up about that. Just kidding.
I think a lot of people are just frustrated.
Okay, and as I stated in my email to you, I did not put the road use agreement on the list of things from Black Oak Wind Farm that they are to provide for us, because it is our responsibility to make the road use agreement. Now, they have agreed with this verbally. They're the ones that suggested the turnkey. They prefer the turnkey.
That's right, so we would need Black Oak's opinion on this too, because it's supposedly our agreement with them, right?
No,
Who's
they have to
agreement?
abide by it.
Okay.
As an addendum aside, I stated that verbally they are in agreement with this.
Okay.
But
So that's good.
that was an addendum. That was an addendum.
You're quiet, Mr. Carpenter.
What's that?
You're being pretty quiet.
I actually can't speak to any issue having to do with the wind farm. I'm under review by the County Board of Ethics right now. And I could put the town of Enfield in jeopardy potentially legally if I say anything at all about the wind farm in a meeting or make any votes in relation to wind farm matters.
How long does that last?
Until the County Board of Ethics makes a determination whether I have.
So you can't vote on my, my resolution to have Black Oak pay for Black Oak related
I
FOIA
haven't been
requests?
told by the County Board of Ethics that I can't, but I'm
But you
trying
don't,
to.
you're not going to?
I'm trying to protect the town by not saying
Okay.
anything and by not voting in this particular instance. That's my best understanding of what I can do to best protect the town.
Okay, well, there's no point in bringing that up today, then.
So I will try to have a separate packet on that available at the next meeting. And also, I'll make this statement that Appendix A and Appendix B are part of the road use agreement, but the road use agreement stands on its own. And the Appendix A and the Appendix B are done prior to building permit issuance and are not, it doesn't matter what town roads they use. They could use all 44.6 miles of them. The body of the agreement remains the same. And so siting and placement at this point are not relevant to the
So they could,
the agreement, the passage of the road use agreement.
so if they use every single, town road, they would be responsible for the repairs on all those town roads that they use, based on the.
Based on the,
Based on the routes.
Well, I don't
based
think,
on the engineers.
that's not the intent of a road use law. Well,
No, it's not a law.
I know,
It's
but
an
it is.
agreement.
Yeah, I know, but it's, well, we talked about that a while back. The intent is to limit the number of roads they use to ones that are suitable for use, and then making sure that the ones they do use are sufficiently strong and protected so that it will handle the traffic or be
So we should
reconstructed.
know where they're gonna go.
Yes,
So
we will. No.
Yeah.
Prior to the
And-
issuance of a building permit.
So they'd be likely using state roads and some of the county
The
roads.
state is,
and
yeah.
They're gonna have
they
better
only-
roads.
Right now, they've got about a half mile of town road that this covers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's about it.
Yeah.
it's only so many ways. you
So
can get
we're
there.
spending a whole lot more time and effort on a
Thank
very
you.
minimalistic
Thank
thing.
you.
Okay.
So very specific, yeah.
So you're okay with this agreement as it's?
The format of this agreement provides excellent blanket protection for the town,
Okay.
written by an attorney. It's a lot of stuff you don't even need to have in it for this particular project.
But it's there.
But it's
provides
there.
protection.
And Guy's argument is that because we do not have a road use protection law,
You have to put,
you are covering everything that you would put into a law into the agreement, as opposed to writing 3 pages and saying they're gonna use this road, it's in this condition, they need to do this, and they need to put this much money up,
Okay.
which is what I was proposing earlier.
and I do thank you for that.
And I still have that draft.
Yeah, right.
And
Right. And
we-
maybe we'll get around to passing
And
a road use law.
I don't wanna argue with attorneys, although I love doing it.
There's a time and a place.
Yeah, I think the town has enough enforcement with the whole environmental review process and the permitting process to require them to do this without having all that language in there, but I put on the record once to say that as an
You
engineer,
defer, yeah.
and I'll be talking to Guy about that at some point probably.
Okay, we're on to new business, and earlier in our meeting, we agreed to talk about the Wind Farm Advisory Committee report. I mean, it strikes me, we pretty well already discussed it, but
We can
you know,
cover the remaining stuff.
I'll listen. You did answer in the earlier, report, you did answer my question, that, oh, well, maybe you didn't answer my question. Well, you did. This
can ask it
doesn't preclude, you haven't done the setback based on, this could never happen in Enfield.
What do you mean? It wasn't our intention to.
It was not your
To
intention.
preclude wind development. And it wasn't, and it was expressly stated, I should say that, it was stated that, with the understanding that it wasn't gonna affect the current project either.
And all the board members do understand that the passage, not the revision or the addition of, the passage of this local law would have no bearing on the current project before the board.
That was the understanding when we were developing it.
Well, I just want to reiterate my understanding.
I think to say it has no bearing is might be going a little bit too far.
It was
I
done
think-
without the expected.
You wouldn't expect that you would use it to make determinations upon the existing permit application that's under the law right now. But you certainly could say to yourself, well, what happens if the application that the wind farm has made right now is not viable? What happens if we find that they actually can't put that application and all of its features in place because, let's say, they have no place to put a substation? Let's say then they decide to go back to their supplemental and say, okay, we're gonna jump back to the supplemental again. And the town at some point says, or even the state says, well, legally, procedurally, you either can or can't do that. But let's say perhaps you can't do that for some reason, or let's say the town decides they've had enough of jumping back and forth from one to the other trying to get this thing through. At that point, if they have to reapply for a permit, then the fact that we would have passed a new law that had significantly tighter restrictions would have a significant bearing on the project as it exists right now, or the fact that the Black Oak Wind Farm wants to get a project permitted. It wouldn't necessarily apply to this specific application right now. But to the project itself, it certainly could apply. That makes sense?
So it doesn't apply to this application.
Right. Well, and that's why Ann was saying it has no bearing at all, and
Yeah, you're right.
I'm just,
Well, that's an interesting point. You're saying the new, if we pass, say we pass a new law in a week, or a month,
Well, it
2
would
months
take-
later,
it'd probably take longer than that.
Black Oak says they want to move the turbines to a new location, then
but anything may happen that would require them to reapply. And assumably, if they had to reapply, then they would be reapplying under the law that was in existence at the time they applied, which, if it were this new law, that's what the law would be that they would be applying under.
But they didn't reapply when they came up with their Plan B with the new turbine locations, did they? Wasn't that still the original application?
You mean when they changed the turbines from the 1.7 to the 2.3s?
No, when they
Went back to the
came up
draft.
with the whole supplemental environmental impact statement for the new locations of the turbine.
And when they put the supplemental in place, or when they put the supplemental out of place and threw it away?
When they put it in, that was
Okay.
still under the original
I
application?
think there's a legal procedure that allowed them to do that, yes. And I don't know that we ever even got a legal determination that that was legally okay or not. I think we just said, okay, they're gonna do it, and maybe we did, maybe we
I
didn't.
don't think it voided the current application, though.
It may not have.
I don't think Frank Pavia would have.
It doesn't seem like Frank would have done that, yeah. And obviously Frank probably would have said something had it not been legally all right for them to just let go of the supplemental and say, we're going back to the original. He didn't say again that something was wrong.
And they could do that again. They could say, well.
I don't know that they can. I mean, I don't know the. I don't know
How far do
the
you bounce
legality
back
of
and
it.
forth and you say
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah. And I don't know what the reason was why they decided to step away from the supplemental back to the original again. I don't know. Maybe they found something in the supplemental that was impossible to implement as well. We don't know any of that, so.
Well, given that the supplemental draft EIS that we're working on for the early part of this year, that didn't trigger a new application, so.
It didn't, no.
It did not.
So, and I
Yeah.
would suspect that similar changes would be, or the changes to the project would be similar.
Well, I would think at some point the town, when I talked to the town attorney 2 days ago, and I asked him specifically about this, and I was talking in relation to something else, but he did make a statement that at some point the town may well decide to say, it's been 8 years, you've been messing around with this stuff long enough. You keep jumping and jumping, we can make a determination at this point that you need to apply for a new permit at this point, because you're just not, you're taking up our time in ways that are inappropriate and unfair. So.
I mean, it seems reasonable rather than bouncing back and forth
Right.
on these things.
So
I
again.
would definitely get, the
Yeah.
legal advice on that, whether that's.
Exactly, yeah.
Whether we can do that.
Right.
Because it could go on for years like that.
And that's what Guy was basically saying, that at some point you gotta, one of those colloquial phrases that they use to say.
Enough is enough.
Fisher,
Yeah.
hey.
Right, we
You
won't
know,
say it here.
It's
but-
like another major change, it's like, okay, let's just reapply. You know, I can see that in that case, that would probably come under a new law.
Well, if they had to reapply and we had a new law in place, I would assume that the new law would apply at that point, yeah.
Or even knowing that the town is working on a new law, during the process of application would probably
Right.
trigger that. I
So,
don't know,
and that's why I
up to
say, to
lawyers.
say it has no bearing is a little bit disingenuous, because in fact, if they have to do that, and if in fact we would like them to have the possibility of putting their wind farm in the places that they have leases to,
Yep.
then it's possible that we may pass a law that entirely outlaws the possibility they could do that. And so we at least want to consider that as a thought.
Yeah, there could be, that, you know, depending on the scenario like that, that probably could be, but when we were working on it, it was on the presumption that it would not affect the current project.
Right, exactly. That's what I was saying before, though, is that thinking long-term, I think, is something we have to start doing.
And when we were working on it, you know, when we step back to the simpler version, we really focused on some of the key problems that came up this year. You know, there was a lot of questions about noise. This is much more specific on the noise. Big issue was the setbacks. We addressed some of the setbacks by not putting in specific feet, but they, like 4 times, you know, a formula for doing that. And we addressed, there was notification issues that came up in terms of like how you get notified, and people were questioning about the notification and distance for the notification area. So we addressed that as well. So we really were very targeted in some of the key issues that
Noise,
came up.
setbacks, notifications.
Noise, setbacks, notifications, there was a height in there too.
Height restriction.
That you know, was kind of, you would kind of question that, but rather than assume that the turbines can grow to whatever height, you know, are they gonna be 800 feet next time or 1,000 feet? Because they've been continuing to grow in height and in scale. But there's also a clause in there that allows the town board to change that, depending on.
To waiver that.
To waiver that, yes. So, I was initially concerned about the height because if you change as the height grows, so doesn't the setback distance. Because it's based on.
It's still based.
It's
Let me
based
ask-
on
It's
the height.
proportional.
But how far do you go on that?
Let me ask you a question then. If you are giving the town the right to waive a setback distance to make it smaller, or a height to make it smaller, are you also giving the town the right to waive that setback distance and make it longer, or make it shorter?
We did not add that.
Why couldn't that be part of
I
it?
think that would be part of it in the beginning part of the discussion, so.
It could, right? I mean, we
Well,
were
I
trying
think-
to make minimal changes that weren't going to be controversial.
Yeah, but,
But as the science
that-
changes,
that's,
things change.
do you realize how significant that is?
But that was also part of the existing law, was
Right.
was that ability to change that.
Yeah, I mean, that
To
was
make it
already-
longer, or to?
Um,
Existing law gives a waiver process.
Yes.
That lets the town supervisor say,
Or
the town board just
or
said,
the town
no,
board.
I can say yes. It didn't give the supervisor the right for the town board to say yes, and her to say no, however.
I have to look in the specifics of that, but I believe it
I looked
was
at
the
them.
town board had, okay.
I read
I have to read- I have to
I
reread
read
it,
that
I have
over
to reread it.
3 or 4
Okay.
times.
Okay.
Yeah, and I looked at the language.
Was it said the supervisor?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
that's the appeals process.
That's the appeals process. There
The
was a separate-
administrative
there was a separate-
appeals
There was a
process.
separate clause in the law, I forget what section it was, that allowed the town board to change, if a company came in and said, well, it was just over the height restriction.
Yeah.
Then, you know, town board could say, yeah, okay, we're fine with that.
There were a lot of issues with that law, though, that were
Well,
pretty.
there are a lot of issues with the law.
But the
We
thought-
were trying to solve them all.
Yeah, but the thought was, we didn't want the turbines to necessarily grow exponentially large to the point that it
Oh, I
becomes
understand.
unreasonable to put them in that place,
All
that there
right,
should be
but,
some.
but suppose that your setback distance is 1,500 feet, based on the existing turbine's noise level at 40 decibels max, okay? Okay, well, they just invented a new turbine from XYZ company. It's great. It's shorter, and it only needs that 1,500 feet setback. But you know what? It's a lot louder. So, you know, where it's just, or
That's-
maybe it does something entirely different that we don't even know that it's gonna do. Maybe it shoots poison rays out at the people that live there. I don't, you know, that's just a joke, but maybe it does something that we didn't put in the law. And yet, we didn't put in the law also that we have a right to consider unusual or extraordinary factors in terms of health and safety of nearby neighbors. Therefore, we don't have any law that says it can't shoot those poison darts at neighbors, because we didn't put that in the law.
Yeah, I think these are very good
We're
things.
happy to add it.
Yeah,
We can put it in.
Well,
Like I said, we didn't.
at least give us
Yeah.
the option to have some kind of say at some point in relation to unusual things, because the future is going to change. We know that's true.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not continuing the Wind Advisory Committee beyond 16, right? Then we've submitted this to you, and the board can now make additional changes.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
You want,
And I assume that was the process
And
that
I'd
we
be
were gonna
happy to
do.
help.
Yeah.
yeah, and we talked about many things and got off on a lot of tangents on these
Yeah,
kinds
I
of
understand,
subjects. And we realized that the bulk of the changes were a bit unmanageable. And we needed something we present to the town board
I think-
that addressed some of the key issues that came up.
My main concern, Michael, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of days, is just that I understand that there was a lot of give and take between the different factions on the board. And I really appreciate, I think you guys did a great job coming up with this. At the same time, I don't think that the board can afford to take this as a done deal. I think we have to look at this as a starting point
Yeah.
and say, we appreciate the effort that you've made here. Now we need to make considerations in areas that you may not have considered, or you may not have been able to make a determination on because there was too much strength on each side of the argument that you actually couldn't put in something that the board would like to have stronger or weaker, as the case may be.
Yeah, I would definitely consider this a starting point, and the board should definitely look at this and review the
Right.
law. And if it wants other
Right.
things in that, then it can,
Right.
perfect, it's within its purview to put, this isn't like, you can only take these recommendations and that's it. These are just we're just recommending this to the town board. These
Right.
are our recommendations to implement. Doesn't
Right.
mean you can't
and
stop
we're,
there.
we can share with you the longer version with the larger changes if you
Yeah.
want.
Well, let's wait and see how it goes. I
Yeah.
mean, I think we've got a process ahead of us, so,
Yeah.
see how it goes.
part of what we were trying to do is do it by consensus, not by majority rule. So one person could next property agree, you know.
Yeah, and that was.
So because we
Yeah.
wanted to get something by the end of the year when we got disbanded to.
And that was
in hands,
exactly what you
Kind of
were-
like with the
yeah.
EIS
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
where we needed to get something in there.
That's what you were tasked to do, and I think
Right.
that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying to be practical.
Yeah.
So. And it does, even if that law is passed as recommended, it's a lot stronger than the 2009 law. There's a lot more protections for the property owners, in terms of like setbacks and noise.
Right, but at the same time, we, as a town board, we can't just consider the property owner side, we also have to consider the larger, you know? And so the town board may wind up sitting here and saying, well, your property setbacks are too long, we have to shorten them.
And it's the board's purview to
Exactly.
take that under
Yeah.
consideration. So.
Yeah, and I think that's happened many times in the past with other boards as well, so.
Yes.
Thank you. It's come to my attention that the park and ride needs to be plowed in the winter. So I have entered into discussion with Patrick Head to provide this service to the town.
So, I guess this is probably, probably should have mentioned Buddy. Was Buddy asked whether
I believe by his lack of action, there's statements made.
I understand that, but I think there's a lot of disagreement on the town board and highway superintendent, but.
I mean, I'll directly ask him.
Well, he was right
I think
here
we
when
should at
we
least give him a
mentioned it.
first pass saying, would you be willing to do this? And he might say, well, I could have saved you $2,000 or something.
Well, he'll say that anyway.
Well, I'll say it anyways, but at least we're giving him the opportunity to have. a
Well,
pass at
let's,
it.
I mean, I believe 2 weeks ago, before Thanksgiving, it was a significant snowfall. That's my recollection.
Yeah, there was one.
There was
snowfall.
like would be no question as to whether something needed to be plowed or not.
It should, that was a plow situation, it was, yes.
And
There's no question.
being a,
But it wasn't.
yeah, and being a regular parker, there, most of the people would start showing up there. It would have to be plowed
Early.
like before 7.
Mhm.
Actually, the first bus gets there at 7, so I would say 6:45 that we should be.
And usually
prepared.
those plow guys are out at
Taking care of the roads.
3 in the morning, 2 in the
Yeah.
morning, 1 in the morning, whatever.
Oh, yeah,
because
they're-
that's where the money is, so.
Yeah.
For my part, Ann, I would be happy to have you negotiate whatever arrangements you can make and whatever's appropriate.
Did he say how much he was gonna charge?
Yes, 100 down, 3 inches or more.
Okay.
He would not plow unless there was 3 inches or more snow, and it's $100 per session.
And there probably are people that would do it less expensively, not the highway
With
department.
insurance.
There probably are, yeah.
Give me their names.
Who does
Um,
here? Who does the town? Who does this?
Who
out
does the
here?
town roads?
No, out here.
The fire department.
Buddy does.
Buddy does.
Down Barnes does it. He does.
There you go.
So, so Buddy's could be willing to do it.
Fire
That's
department
what
does
you
the
do.
blacktop up there.
I don't know if he wants to talk to us, but.
Well,
But
there's a fellow here who would know what the highway department plows or not.
I know you don't speak for Buddy, but do you think Buddy would be willing to plow that if asked?
I don't know if he's ever asked or, I don't know. It's,
No, I was just.
I know there's only 2 of our trucks that could even fit in there, so.
Yeah.
Because of the small entrance?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it'd probably
It's
take 2
Buddy's
swipes.
pickup truck or 9, the one that plows
Well, do you
it.
know why he didn't plow it 2 weeks ago, before Thanksgiving?
He's never asked.
Nobody asking.
And it's not his job to do that.
Oh, because it's.
Right,
It's not his job.
Oh, it's not his job.
Well, I think that's questionable.
Lack of communication.
Well, I mean, what does, what is responsibility of the highway to? Is it to take care of all the properties of the town or just the roads?
That's why I say it's questionable, because I don't think that's clear as to what it is.
That's a good question.
And is it a legal responsibility? Is it something that people normally do if they're highway superintendents in a town? I know some highway departments automatically plow all the town properties, and that's what they do, but some don't, so.
Yeah.
The one highway department I have the most experience with plows all the facilities in that town, including trails and parking lots that are owned by the town.
Do you know if is that a legal obligation, or is that just something?
I
they
mean,
do as
it's
a
all
matter
town
of
property,
circumstance?
so they can do work on the town
I'm
property.
from
So-
TCAT, ain't plowing.
It's not their property.
But the town board provides the funding to do that, and they have a budget line for plowing.
Because most municipalities that they deal with provide the snow plowing. That's why they don't.
So they don't have no plow anywhere where any stops are?
That's what they verbally told me.
I think they got plow trucks in TCAT, it says on the sign.
They don't come to Enfield.
We got a shelter, so that's good.
I mean, it'd be worth asking them. Instead of paying someone else $100 to do it.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, we definitely need to ask him.
Can we just contract with this head guy temporarily till we get a chance to ask Buddy?
No, ask Buddy first. Ask
Right, but
Beth
when-
to ask him
but
on
when you-
January 1st.
But I'm saying between now and we ask Buddy,
Crazy.
in case there's like a foot of snow,
We can do that tomorrow.
yeah.
Somebody can.
I'll go down and ask him tomorrow.
Oh,
Beautiful.
excellent.
Thank you.
Tomorrow's
Thank you.
another day.
Well, not too long, I'll wait.
Yeah, soon's coming.
Another thing is see if TCAT will do it.
I know his main complaint with the park and ride was that he said, well, I could have done that for cheaper.
Right.
Um,
He was never
Right, I
asked.
know that, but I
And,
mean,
and I'm like, well, this gives an opportunity to say, you know, if you can do this for cheaper, then.
this is
give-
getting
give
TCAT
them the
clientele up here
opportunity.
too, so it's not, they're benefiting from it, so.
Yeah.
Well, Buddy was sitting right there when, the beginning of the meeting, Ann said she was adding to the agenda.
Yeah, I don't know, and then
He didn't say
then he
anything.
walked out, so I don't know if he had anything left to say about that and all this, or not.
I think I'd have been a little pissed off myself if I
But he
heard
didn't-
that was being added to the agenda
Yep.
instead of being asked.
Ask.
So you wanted to ask him?
So,
I'll ask
actions, aren't answers, huh? Okay.
Some are.
Okay, so you're gonna ask Buddy tomorrow about
Plowing the parking ride.
when needed, 3 inches or more.
And if he says no, then you have the answer.
Also, it's come to my attention that Vanessa's cleaning service has not been cleaning the community building since the last of October or something like that. So I've entered into negotiations with Zachary Snyder to provide this service as a town employee. So I guess, I don't know, I guess we need to make a resolution whether we want to hire a cleaner at the living wage, which is $15 and I'm not sure how many cents.
Just for the community building.
For the upstairs and the downstairs of the community building. Is there a second?
Second.
Does it have to be, by the hour, or can it be by the cleaning?
Has to be by the hour if they're employees.
$15
In this sort of thing, I believe it, well, first of all, I do know it's a civil service position. It is non-competitive, and it is listed as an hourly position, not as a salaried position.
And that'd be once a week?
No, every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
In keeping with the recycling schedule. Because that's the problem, getting the recycle out of here. So that would be tomorrow, which I'm sure I have to remind Zachary of.
So you provide all the cleaning and that, this is for cleaning services?
This is a young man in the community.
Okay.
We would provide the plastic bags, the soap that he uses on the floor.
Okay.
I hope he's using soap. It would be nice if the town would provide him with hot water, but we're working on that problem.
And how long would it typically take to do the job? You know?
I haven't checked. Did you notice?
I was here when he got here, he was still here when I left, I'm guessing 2 or 3 hours every 2 weeks.
And what were we paying before
$110 a session.
per time? So this is gonna cost about 60 if he takes 3 hours. So it's almost a savings in half.
I would guess.
Plus
$45?
taxes, workers' comp.
What's that?
Taxes, workers' comp.
That's why I said $20 an hour.
Oh.
Yeah. It's usually about a third.
A little bit more. 60 to 75.
It won't be 20, if he's getting paid 15, it won't be 25. It'll be more like 20, 21, something like that.
So I believe I made a motion?
Mm-hmm.
Mike seconded it.
Oh, okay, now we're discussing. Any more discussion? Call the vote.
Councilperson Carpenter?
Aye.
Councilperson Handstein?
Aye.
Councilperson Miles?
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder?
Aye. I do want to thank Michael Miles for his perseverance this year and his dedication. I know I'm gonna go take a leap. I think Michael's learned a lot this year, and I'm hoping that it will continue to benefit our community.
Yep, thank you. And I know it's been a difficult year for the town, and I'm glad I could help.
Appreciate it.
And I got to meet lots of wonderful people, so that I didn't know before. So it's
Made a whole lot of money, right?
a whole lot of money. Not rich.
Are you, I don't remember, are you continuing on with the Wind Farm Advisory Committee, or?
I think the conclusion was that, you know, those of us who are on it could be available for, you know, for questions.
So you're not gonna have regular meetings
No,
next year?
no. Unless the board decides that's something that they want to do. Like Mike was asking about, well, there's a lot of other things that we could be adding to the law as well, too.
Yeah. Well, the main purpose of that committee was to come up with a new law, anyway, right?
Yes.
And you've done that?
Recommendations for changes to the.
Yeah,
to the law,
recommendations, yeah.
But yeah, and we've done that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciate it. So it's been fun.
That was a lot of work.
Someday I'll be back.
I'm hoping.
I'll take a little break.
If I quit, will you take my job or not?
That's about the right.
Well, you know, that's my wife. I probably need a little bit of a break first.
Give you a couple of weeks anyways.
That's-
I move that we enter into a closed session under Section 108, Number 3 of the Open Meetings Law regarding the draft state audit report.
I would like to understand what state or federal law you're relying on.
I'm relying on the Office of the State Comptroller saying this is confidential and I am to discuss it with no one but the town board. If you think that ain't a state law, go research it and send it to me.
Well, I have. I talked to my lawyer about it, and it's a document that can be foiled. Which makes it a public document, so I don't understand.
It is not a public document at this time. It is a draft. Foil away.
Well, all right, my official objection to it being an executive committee.
It's a closed session. So I move that we enter into a closed session. Is there a second?
Mike had seconded it before he got it.
Oh, okay. So the public has made a comment. Is there any other discussion by town board members?
No, not for me.
Oh, I guess we'll wait for Mike to call the vote.
Is this in our packet? I know it came in an email a couple weeks ago or 2 weeks ago.
My understanding was received under separate cover. I'm not sure what you received.
Yes, I did. receive
Oh, okay, we're calling the vote, Mike.
Councilperson Carpenter?
Aye.
Councilperson Handstein?
Aye.
Councilperson Miles?
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder?
Aye. My hand raised. Phew.
So I was wondering if you've sent that letter to Black Oak requesting the documents, including the letter from Rich Teeter, and if so, have you received it?
Yes and no, I think Raul and discussed that.
Yes, I sent the letter.
A couple, 3 weeks ago.
And some plans have been forwarded to our environmental specialist for review. And
Are we spending money reviewing things without all the documents?
Yes. And we received a reply for the plans submitted from our environmental specialist somewhere during today.
And was there no mention made at all of what we asked for in terms of the letters from Rich and,
There was,
Johnny?
there's been no statement regarding letters, the request for the letters.
Is there a time frame that they mentioned that they would have a response either way, that they're not gonna provide it, or they are gonna provide it?
I can check on that.
sounds like they haven't said anything.
Because we
So
could
why,
go for
why are we
months and not
incurring
know.
costs until they prove they can build the project?
This is a process. I am following our lawyer's legal advice on the process.
Well, in actuality, Jude, if you looked at it legally, we're not incurring costs, right?
We're not what?
We're not incurring costs, because they're supposed to pay for that, right?
No, but they're in the hole right now.
They are in the hole. But legally, when we get those things back and get the bills, we're supposed to get prepaid. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I don't, but if you looked at it just in a financial term, that money is supposed to come back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. If they're paying for it, then.
well,
But we should
it's-
get that, we should
it-
get
The
the count.
professional,
Yeah.
You might
the
just say to
environmental
them, you might
specialist.
say to them, why are you guys incurring these costs when you haven't gotten the letters back to us and you don't even know if the town's gonna let you go ahead because you don't have a legal site to put this thing?
And I think
Well-
according to the agreement that if they fall under $2,000, that we should send out a letter, or they should, but we have to request that, I think, and we should probably send that out.
okay. Well, also, you might think over, you know, the, how much this town can demand from them.
What does that
Just
mean? I
would
mean,
like you to put
they're
that into
asking
your
for-
thinking cap.
Your
Well,
town law
And actually, I've
says-
been thinking about that for like the last 10 months. Very seriously, I've been thinking about it and
There-
talking to hundreds of people just about that very question. Both supporters of the wind farm, people that are against the wind farm, and I have so many different thoughts and opinions on it, including Guy Crow, who talked to me about it 2 days ago, and how much he thought the town could demand from the wind farm. And I think about it a lot.
Good.
Well, I don't quite understand the question. We demand from them whatever we're entitled to demand according to the agreements.
There is an upper threshold that is a percentage of the project, I believe.
Well, that's how much money we can demand in repayment.
Yes, there
There is a-
there's an upper threshold that's a percentage of the project cost that
Right.
the town, even with the agreement, can extract from,
Right.
from the developer.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that was
I'm not
what
sure
Ann
whether
was
we've reached that.
speaking to right
But,
there.
but that may come a factor as this goes
Well,
on and on.
it's fast approaching a factor. It's
yeah.
fast approaching a
So-
factor.
But we don't know,
Uh,
but we don't know the true cost of the entire project, or do we have an estimate?
But where is that
Yeah.
threshold? Is it in the wind law?
No,
No, it's
it's
part
in
of
the
state.
seeker law.
Yeah,
It's
part
in
of
the seeker law.
State law.
State seeker law.
So
And-
what,
Is there a
what,
threshold in seeker on what
Yes.
expenses?
Yes.
We have a
so what recourses do towns have when they reach that limit?
That's one for the lawyers.
Yeah, right.
I
Sounds
don't
like you
know.
need to put a limit, a timeline on them for
Yeah,
kind
no.
of proving they can build this thing.
And again, that may come into factor if the current project is viable and they say, well, we're gonna go to like another phase of this thing, and maybe that's the point, saying, you know, this application's done, let's move on to like application 2 and start this over
Yeah.
again. I don't know, but
It's
that's a lot of ifs and.
So there comes,
Curious.
Yes.
there comes a point where we're responsible for all legal and engineering fees?
That's what That goes
That
down.
Well,
was
you can
my
look in the law,
understanding.
and I wish I could, but I didn't bring the folder.
You know, and this is
But
this is my
it's-
memory.
For all of our own expenses, no matter what they are in relation to the wind law.
Relating to seeker, relating to seeker.
But you're past seeker.
But I think there was.
Well,
I
that's true. Then if seeker is already done, what are we working with now? What law governs asking them
Your
to?
developer's agreement, I did think, right?
I may be incorrect in that, but I remember, and I don't remember the
No, it's
specific
in the
law.
seeker law.
It's in the seeker law?
But the
Well,
seeker's
that-
over. Jude is right. The
Seeker's
seeker is
over.
done.
Okay, so that
We
may not be a
approved,
factor anymore.
we approved the finding statement.
These plans aren't part of the seeker?
Nope.
What we're looking for now is for them to comply with our wind law, not
This
with
is-
seeker.
This is for the wind permit. We've already given final approval, the town board has given final approval for the.
So it would have to be the
seeker.
developer's agreement that would require them to keep paying.
And I don't know whether any other law kicks in terms of an upper threshold. But I remember that coming up at some point.
Maybe we should get a lawyer on the town board. Not Guy, though. These meetings would go on till 1 or 2 in the morning if he was here.
But there's also the type of, like, obviously, the foils are the biggest.
Yeah, well, Henry hasn't even got his say on that one yet. It's still waiting.
No, I
in the
tried
wings.
last month, and I think it was because Virginia left.
Right.
And this month, you're not gonna vote, so maybe next month.
Non-residential properties, 1.5% of the total project cost.
Yeah, that's it.
1/2 of 1% of $40 million.
That doesn't equal a lot of money.
No, is that?
But 1% is what, 400,000?
Yeah, it says
Or is it
review
40,000?
And preparation costs, but that's for the
1%
seeker.
would be
I thought it was
two
closer to-
zeros off 40 million.
I
That's
thought it was closer,
400,000.
I thought it was higher than that, but.
It's 1/2
Review
of
and
1% of
preparation costs
the
may be charged.
So it'd be
estimated
$200,000.
cost of the project.
Wow, it's a new taller turtle. Maybe it'll be more expensive.
Have they already spent $200,000?
No, but they're bumping up the.
They said they've spent 3 million. I think maybe that's on other people that they've hired to do stuff, I guess, probably.
Well, they're
They
nowhere near.
purchased turbines,
They
or they
purchased-
purchased stuff.
Well,
Right, and they made all these seeker things and.
Well, the whole environmental
Haley
impact
Aldrich
statement was
and-
very costly, and it had a lot of engineering costs and reports and stuff
Right.
that they would do, so that was probably.
That's a lot
very,
of money.
very- It's a lot of money
Yeah.
to
They did
do
that
what they
twice,
asked.
at least.
What's that?
They did that twice, at least.
Yeah,
That's true, they had to do it for the supplemental too.
yeah, so there's a lot of costs that they
Yeah.
incurred in that on their own,
Yeah.
not town costs.
Right.
So 200,000 is the number. Well, but it doesn't matter anyway, if seeker's over,
Well,
it
it
doesn't
may
apply.
be less because you have to look at the pieces you're allowed to include
Mm-hmm.
in the definition. So there's, it's limited to certain things.
There was another hand raised on privilege of the floor.
Yeah. Marcus Gainer, 101, sorry.
We
Who?
know where you live.
That's what I'm referring to. Just a couple of comments. You know, I'm sure you guys all already probably know a lot of this too, but, you know, there's a lot of confusion about documents and stuff, and dealing with document control, just a suggestion. I mean, what we have to do for projects is you put a document number in the footer and it goes on every single page as part of the footer. As soon as you update a document, it gets a new number or a revision number. That way, I mean, even a date in a corner, that's the first page. You don't know what the rest of it is. But if you have it in Word, you just put it into a footer and it automatically goes on every single page, a document number. It's part of document control. You were gonna say something?
I was saying, you know, like the county, they really do it well. You know, it's all ahead of time, it's all like this packet of documents that's public, and
Michelle does a wonderful job.
And they have somebody hired to do that
That's
job.
right. Michelle earns a living wage.
What also it helps is if you ever need to go back and look at an old document, you know exactly which one.
There's no question, Marcus.
But
If I had employees, I could,
Well, it would be, it's actually not that hard if you set up a template in Word and just boom, 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 use it every time. But, the other thing, that was, maybe I completely missed something, but you know, there was talk about the road use agreement and whether Buddy had, his concerns were addressed. Was there like ever, like a list of his concerns laid out in, you know,
Look
just
at the
check-
minutes.
checked off exactly? 'Cause
Look
it
at the
seems like so
minutes.
many times things are brought up and then they're brought up or not brought up again. And it's like, okay, did we address these or didn't we?
They didn't really get brought up at the meeting, so Dan said that he would talk to Buddy and figure out what his problems were. And so Dan did this with Buddy separately outside of the meetings.
Okay, just so, you know, it seems like it would be simple, just make a list of things. Okay, did we fix this, fix this, fix this, fix that, you know,
Yeah.
but.
It would be much
Yeah.
easier, like with Dan, he was right here, are you okay with it? Yeah, I'm okay with it, fine.
But even, you know, I
But-
asked-
But Buddy left, and I would have loved to ask him.
But even when I asked him, I asked Dan as an aside, like, where are we dealing with what happens if one of these things collapses and a new one has to be brought in? And he's like, oh, well, we would have to deal with that in the road use agreement. Well, he didn't say anything out loud about it.
Yeah.
It
And
doesn't
you know what?
deal with it in there.
That's not his job. That's an issue.
I know.
Well, and I guess that brings me to my last point is, and I guess maybe it's never changed, but I mean, I keep hearing different versions, et cetera. If there's a change, are we, as the public, gonna get a chance to review it? Or, and the question I have is, okay, what actually changed from the previous one? I mean, I don't even, you guys don't know what the versions are, I don't know what they are. It's just really hard to keep track of what's going on.
Are all of these on the website, Ann? All these new ones that
No.
Black Hook submitted?
no, no.
Do they go on the website? I mean, if we're gonna.
I don't think it's appropriate. They are documents that the board is considering.
But
I
isn't
will
any
certainly-
information that the board considers supposed to be available to the people that come to the meeting?
I dutifully ran the goddamn copying machine till
Right.
10 of 6 tonight
Right.
and did what the town clerk.
Well, I understand that,
claimed
but isn't there a
was-
state law that says that we have to have that paperwork available to
This is
people at
something-
meetings?
this is something
And
we're
who's saying
discussing.
it wasn't available?
Well, where is it available?
It was available on the table, but if it's on the table, it seems like it could be on the website too, because you could take a picture with your camera of it and have it, so
Well, we should
Public
put that
information.
stuff on the website.
it seems like once it's out there, it's public, I would
Typically,
think.
when you read the laws, they say, make it available in some format that the public can access.
Right.
And they usually say that email or website
In
is
this day and
acceptable.
age, yeah.
Yeah.
I think in transparency, even if it's not a finished document or something that we're working on.
It
put
should
a
say
a
draft,
on
yeah,
it,
date
something
and a
saying,
draft,
You know,
yeah.
so people say, this is not finished, don't, you know, don't.
Well, actually,
don't-
I think legally,
These were all
we
provided by
actually
Black
have to
Oak.
do it.
Yeah.
Not just for
They were
transparency.
provided by
You just
Black
have it as
Oak.
part of the document number. It's
I
a
did
revision
add the
A
date.
Instead of a
I see
revision
that.
1.
Yeah,
But I cannot add a date to a PDF.
I should look if there's like,
Can't buy them.
there's,
What's that?
there's websites and programs that I have to look up. There may be,
Do what?
there may be like a text solution to that that's easily
You
solved.
can,
Besides
you can
Twitter.
How
have
did you
page
get the
numbers, and I
information
think
from
you can
Black Oak?
probably put in a
Did they
footer
email
on
it?
Adobe Acrobat.
They emailed
Yeah.
it to the
Yeah, maybe
environmental
maybe Acrobat.
specialist and
I
myself.
think, I know I've added page numbers,
Okay.
I think you might be able to add a footer. I'd have
Do
to
you
double
feel
check.
like it's inappropriate to put on the website?
No, have a ball.
Well,
I don't think it'll clarify, and then there'll just be constant arguments about
but
which
I
version
don't,
you're
I don't have a
looking at.
digital version though,
And-
so I
and-
can't do it.
And the only other major version we saw of that
The only
was-
person that
was-
puts
was-
stuff on our website is Sue Thompson. We have-
Well, I have a
control.
copy, we can scan it, and it can go onto the website.
Well, but Ann could just give you the digital.
That would work too,
Yeah.
yeah.
So is that a problem, you giving?
No,
them the
I'll give it to
digital?
Sue.
Okay, great. And then
I'll give
Sue
them all
will go
to
ahead and
Sue.
put it on the website? Okay, I think that would be appropriate. I mean, again, if we're trying to be legal here and keep ourselves from lawsuits, I'd like to try and do that as much as we can, so.
Oh, so a while ago, I sent out an email to everybody on the board, and it had a property value compensation plan from the town of Hammond. Anybody remember getting that?
I don't remember seeing it. What did you, what list did you send it on?
I just emailed it to all the board members.
On the town of Enfield list?
Yeah, I think I do remember reading it, but it was a while ago, like a couple
Yeah,
months ago.
and I-
From the town of Hammond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
I
asked.
didn't bring it with me.
No, I would just, I mean, I think that should be.
That's under a different folder.
But if I were gonna look at it, I'd look for it on the town of Enfield listserv.
On your email, your town of Enfield, well, whatever email, I think I mailed it to your town of Enfield email address.
Okay,
I'm
I'll
not
look.
sure, I think I
Okay,
did.
I'll look there.
But I don't, it doesn't look like there's anything about that in Black Oaks. Is there, I haven't looked at this thoroughly yet.
I doubt there is.
Yeah.
Every new version that they get
I doubt
usually
there
has, from what I can see, it usually has one new concession.
Uh-huh.
This one has one new concession in it.
But anyway, I think that should be part of the complaint resolution. Or else a separate.
Well, it's in
agreement.
there. Their version of it is in there. I don't know if you read it today's or not, but
No.
the new one that we just got today, they have that in there.
Oh, really? Okay. I
They
haven't
sent
looked
you
at
a
this
new
yet.
property value?
They sent us a new community dispute resolution plan with a property value component to it.
So that's going on the website.
That's what Alice is going to do, yeah. Yeah.
You sure that's in here, huh?
It is,
It's a
yeah.
lot better than the last one.
You want me to find it? Well, you'll find it. If you look at it, you'll find it.
Do you have any other comments?
I mean, that property value compensation plan from the town of Hammond was considerably longer than this document here.
There was a,
No, I see it now, yeah, she's.
It's on page 3.
Yep, I'm sorry.
Number 8.
What's it say?
You want to read it?
there was a
It's as good as
proposal,
the offer they made me, it's not worth the paper. Sure.
there was a proposal a long time ago when John was running Enfield Energy that he proposed something, a property buyout. But that was like, that was
My
like-
understanding is it was pretty informal.
it was pretty informal, he had something written out, but it was pretty informal, it wasn't like an obligation, but he did put it out there as an idea. So that was like back in the 2008, 2009, I'm not even sure what year it was. It was pretty early on, when he was still in the beginning stages of this.
Yep, it's in there.
So they're gonna exclude all the people who signed a good neighbor agreement.
That's what I said, he only makes they change, one upgrade on every new version. All the rest of the things are all the same, but.
And you gotta like spend most of a year trying to sell it. It's not much of an offer.
There was the one Marguerite.
What?
There was the one Marguerite suggested a couple months ago.
Oh, yeah, that one's funded with all of $40,000. I don't think so.
I suspect that was just a starting point for negotiation. But
Who's gonna make a motion to adjourn?
Let's adjourn.
I just made one. Second?
No, second.
There you go.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.